Good evening and welcome to the March 7th, 2024 meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Planning Commission. For those of you viewing the meeting remotely, you'll find the meeting agenda on the Planning Department website at accgov.com/planning. For those of you attending in person, on the table by the door, you will find a sign-in sheet and copies of tonight's agenda. For each agenda item, we will begin with a report from ACC planning staff, which will be followed by a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes. We will then hear from members of the public. 3 minutes are allowed for any member of the public who wishes to address the Planning Commission. When addressing the commission, please state your name, your address, and the nature of your interest in the project, and direct your comments to the Planning Commission and not to the applicants. The audience is instructed to refrain from applauding or jeering the speakers. Exhibits may be displayed by the applicants or members of the public at the podium. Written correspondence received by noon yesterday has been forwarded to the Planning Commission and is part of the public record. Any additional written materials to be placed into the record must be read aloud during public comment within the 3-minute time limit. For all speakers, please pay attention to the timing device near the podium. That device will display a yellow warning light when you have 30 seconds left, and then a red light when your time is up. After the public comment period, the applicant or their representative may request a 2-minute response. After that, the applicant will take their seat in the audience. At this point, the public portion for the agenda item is closed, and the Planning Commission will proceed to discuss the item. We will receive no additional public or applicant comments during that discussion unless requested by a planning commissioner. Finally, please note that the microphones in the room are very sensitive and that the meeting is being broadcast live. Please turn off or silence your cell phone. So we'll begin with the general business section of our agenda. And item 1 is introduction of staff reports and all other documents submitted to the Planning Commission at this meeting into the official record.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alice, second by Kristen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 2 is approval of the February 1st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Sarah, second by Joey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then item 3, May Courts review and public comment. Bruce, do we have any May Courts?
Staff has nothing to present, but we can certainly receive comment if there is any.
Okay, is any member of the public here to present comment on May Courts? Okay, that completes the general business section, which brings us to new business. And item 1 is 2295 Barnett Shoals Road and 170 Forest Road, item number zone dash 2024-02-0207. And we'll start with the staff report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen. Here to present the staff report for this project here at 2295 Barnett Shoals and 170 Forest Road. Okay, the applicant has made a request to rezone the property from RS25 to RM1. RS25 is one of our single-family residential zones. 25 stands for the amount of square footage. So it's a 25,000 acre lot, or not acre, square foot lot. And then RM1 is our lowest density multifamily zone. The proposal is to build 28 townhouse style multifamily units, approximately 76 bedrooms. I believe the applicant has stated that they are intended to be condos. Is arranged along a single private street. If you look at the site plan, there's also a dog park for residents. There's parking, stormwater, and some wooded buffers along the edge of the property. They are using Forest Road for access because there is a lack of access from the main intersection at Barnett Shoals Road. And this will become apparent when I pull up a couple other slides here. And they're also offering to make this a voluntary binding plan. So you saw this last time, it was a straight rezone with no binding plan. So staff only commented on the land use and the zoning map. Now we've commented on the design this time around because the binding plan has been offered. So this is the site. It's an aerial. You can see the site. The main lot there is 2295 Barnett Shoals right here. It's entirely wooded. And then 170 Forest Road is right here. It has a single family house. Both of these lots belong to Green Acres Baptist Church right here. This is where College Station comes in and intersects with Barnett Shoals. We've got some commercial properties to the front, Green Acres neighborhood in the back, single family houses all around, and the soon to be redeveloped Kroger over here. The request does not require a change to the future land use map, but it does require a change to the zoning map. So it would go from RS 25, which you can see currently is, as is all the other property around it, to the back and to the side. Front is commercial neighborhood zoning, and it would switch over to RM1 right here. Technically an isolated district, but staff thinks that it could serve as a transition zone between the neighborhood and the commercial properties out on those major streets there. And the future land use does not need to change. It is traditional neighborhood. Both RS 25 and RM1 are deemed compatible with the traditional neighborhood future land use. This is where the proposed Forest Road entrance would be if you look at the site plan, and I'll pull that up in a minute. The house would be demolished and replaced with a drive. And then this is the College Station frontage. As you can see, it's offset from the light, so it doesn't have direct frontage at that intersection, which is why it's sat here for so many years and not been developed, because they just don't have access to the main street there. It's too close to the intersection to put in a new driveway there. That's why they're going through the neighborhood. So here's the site plan, the drive going through the Forest Road parcel, single street here, some parking, and then the townhouses arrayed on multiple sides. Those gray areas are wooded buffers. Like we said, the property is entirely wooded right now, and the site plan includes maintaining those buffers around the edge. It also, per staff feedback last time, includes a sidewalk connection out to Barnett Shoals. If this got approved, it would give people who live there a direct pedestrian connection to everything that's going on out there, shortening people's travel. If you've read our staff report, you know that we said it is partially compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. It does increase this housing supply. It is located on an infill site. It is tied into a large node here on the east side. It does lack connectivity. It's, for lack of a better term, a conventional design. And our comprehensive plan calls for developers to look for opportunities to create unique neighborhoods. In this case, something like to use a planning term, a pocket neighborhood or a cottage court, things of that sort. Because of the uniqueness of this site really begs a unique approach. And so this is a prime opportunity for a unique, cohesive neighborhood design that transitions between the commercial and the residential and complements everything else that's going out there, including the neighborhood. The rezone is compatible with the future land use map. We think it's compatible with the zoning map on the Barnett Shoals property, but we do not think it's compatible with Forest Road. That is a single family lot in a platted single family subdivision, and it would create an isolated zone there and potentially negatively impact the lots on either side that are going to remain single family. It's a precedent that we don't want to set for that kind of spot zone. So based on issues with the design, the lack of connectivity, and the incompatibility with the rezone on Forest Road, staff is recommending denial of the requests. However, should you choose to recommend approval, we have attached a couple of conditions. One of them is to create that multi-use path there that I showed you. And then there are some things noted in your staff report where the site plan does not comply with our code. We can't approve things that don't comply with the code. So this condition is just saying that the applicant will have to amend their plan to comply with that code as noted in the staff report. So that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. At this time, we'll open it up to the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Blake Underwood, a citizen of Athens for 23 years and a business owner in Athens for 18 of those years. My first home was on the east side, in which I lived for 12 years. I'm very familiar with the east side. As you may recall, this is our second time before you for this rezone request. Based on your feedback, the feedback of Green Acres, ACC planning staff, and the district commissioner, we withdrew the first rezone request and modified the plans. I want to discuss the changes that are before you today. The overwhelming feedback from the Planning Commission and Green Acres was the desire for a binding site plan in order for everyone to be comfortable that what is being proposed is actually built. We are offering a binding site plan now. The first proposal was for rent product. Green Acres and the district commissioner wanted for sale product out of fear that the project would be targeting students. We are not targeting students and have changed our plans. So this will be a for sale condominium complex based on this feedback. The planning staff recommended a multi-use path that connects to Barnett Shoals Road. We think this is a good idea, and we added that multi-use path on this proposal, as you can see. And Stephen pointed out on the plan, but for some reason, the staff report says it's not on the plan, but it is. So I'm not sure why that's still in the report. Concerns about spot zone of the residential lot at 170 Forest Road. We're replacing a restriction on this lot so that it can only be a single family home in the future. Plus, the rezone is a binding site plan, so there's duplicate protections for that lot. Regarding the lack of compatibility with the comprehensive plan, at the last meeting, many of you on the Planning Commission spoke that you disagree with this comment, and we even heard from others within the planning department that they agree there are multiple ways to look at it. Right now, there's one type of housing in the area. This project creates diversity of housing, given that it is a tiny project on the edge of a massive 418 unit single family neighborhood. We can't create a community of diversity on one parcel under 5 acres. If this was a 20-acre development, of course, this comment would apply and we would not be talking about this proposal. If the property were developed under the existing zoning, which it will never be, there definitely wouldn't be diverse housing types then either. It would be more of the same. We 100% believe that this proposal before you today is the best fit for this infill parcel, while also being mindful of the adjacent neighborhood and neighbors. This property and this proposed development checks all the boxes that our citizens and commissioners are looking for. Walkable to restaurants, grocery stores, retail shops, churches, schools, jobs, and on the bus line. This project adds to the much needed infill housing for our community while preventing sprawl into more rural areas, which is compatible with the comprehensive plan. This is a natural step down or buffer from the heavy traffic convenience stores fronting Barnett Shoals to this low density residential use of less than 6 units per acre to the existing single family homes. This rezone to RM1 is compatible with the future land use map that our city planners and commissioners have earmarked for this parcel. Again, it is compatible with the future land use map. Also, I want to discuss steps that we have taken to be mindful of the adjacent community from day one. Most residential developers will be requesting a rezone to RM2, if not RM3 on this parcel, which would be a minimum of 40 units and 80 units respectively. This is the major corridor of the east side that should be high density development. We proactively reduce this request to RM1 with the proposed plan of 28 units. No buildings will be over 2 stories. We maintain the natural buffer and conserving the existing tree canopy on the neighborhood side of the development of about 100 feet compared to the 10 feet required by code. The adjacent neighbors will not see our buildings from their property due to these conserved natural buffers. The street at Forest Road will be lined with trees and shrubs to minimize the impact of the two adjacent homes and beautify the entrance. We aim to create and maintain a quiet environment. No units will be over 3 bedrooms, and we're not adding any amenities whatsoever that will be attractive to large groups or parties, such as community pools and large 4 and 5 bedroom floor plans. This low density proposal will have minimal impact at the Forest Road and Barnett Shoals intersection. At peak hours, this development will only generate 20 trips per hour, 1 car every 3 minutes. I quote the Transportation and Public Works Department's comment from the staff report. The traffic generated by this proposed project is minimal and does not cause any issues of concern. Tonight, you will hear from some people that do not support the project. The reality is that there are many people that support this project than there are against it. I have heard from both sides. Unfortunately, in our society, only the people that are against it show up or voice their opinions. Keep in mind that this parcel is directly adjacent to 15 homes in Green Acres. 8 of those 15 homes are rentals currently. That's 50%. This project is not negatively impacting the community. Also, keep in mind that this property was 1 commissioner vote away from being rezoned commercial and being an Aldi grocery store in 2013. None of us believed that that would be the best use for this property. This property will be rezoned one day, if not on this attempt. We can't be naive and think that this property in this location should sit vacant for many years to come when we're in the midst of a housing crisis and have an opportunity to make an impact today. Thank you.
I believe. Were you sharing the applicant's time or?
I'm not,
Okay,
I'm going next.
You had 3.5.
I'm Frank Pitman, Pitman Degree Engineering. This is my site plan. I'll kind of touch on a few items just to kind of clarify the staff report. The staff recommended a 12-foot wide multi-use path. We're showing an 8-foot wide multi-use path. I don't know that my client would be against a 12-foot wide path, but it just seems a little bit of overkill for a 28 unit development. There's comments about some code compliance issues that staff can't verify compliance with 15% open space. That calculation is on the plan that was presented that shows 23%. Staff can't verify compliance for 8% of open space. That calculation is also on there, showing it 36%. The 89 parking spaces, it says we exceed the max by 12%. Code says that street parking does not count towards your max parking. So I think we don't exceed it at all. If that was parking lot parking, yes, we would, but it would only be 6%, not 12%. I just wanted to clarify that. I do think that, as staff mentioned, as far as being compatible with the comp plan, it does provide infill housing, creates nodal development next to shopping. As Mr. Underwood mentioned, we feel that it does provide, variety of housing next to the 418 lots that are behind it. We are providing interconnectivity. We've got a multi-use path that goes all the way through, sidewalks all the way from one street to the other. And then I would also mention from the comp plan that wasn't mentioned in the staff report, page 24 of the comp plan says that we should look to provide transitional zoning between residential neighborhoods that abut commercial zones to lessen the adverse impact that two classifications can have on one another. That's exactly what we're doing. And then I'll also mention, and from the comp plan, page 53, under traditional neighborhood, that it supports single family residences, duplexes, and townhomes. So again, I think we're meeting the intent of the comp plan. I'll leave you with one more kind of note, because we've heard a lot about traffic as we met with the community. There are 418 lots in the subdivision today. That would produce 3,942 trips a day. These 28 condos produce 141 trips a day. There was previously a 19 lot subdivision, RS5 subdivision plan that was turned in on this thing under previous zoning. That would produce 179 trips a day, which is still more than what we're doing. So I think that we're negligible on traffic, and if it had been zone commercial, it'd be even higher than that. So we would leave it open for any questions you guys might have as well. Thank you.
At this time, we will turn it over to public comment. And first, we will hear from anyone who is here to speak in favor of.
2 minutes that I think
Mr. Middleton.
Mr. Middleton signed up for.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Middleton's 10 minutes, and then we'll go to 3 minutes for everybody else.
So we do Mr. Middleton before the people who are here to speak in favor of the project, or does he go at the top of?
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, let's go ahead and finish out with the in favor.
Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal?
Commissioners, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Jeff Kuhn, a partner at Stratus Development Group. As a county, we've talked at length about more walkable, infill, missing middle, non-corporate, non-luxury, non-student housing. I firmly believe this project is a no-brainer as it checks all those boxes. It is quite literally across the street from a Super Kroger, a Publix anchored retail center, 3 gas stations, a major employer in the vet school, and 2 other retail centers. A bus stop is adjacent to the site, existing bike lanes, sidewalks, and paths connected to the rest of Athens. There's ample sewer and water capacity. Considering this, the site would actually be ideal for even RM3 zoning. As with any in-town lot, there are those that oppose any type of development nearby. This is a citywide problem. I do want to emphasize this handful of persons are very vocal. I do not represent Athens, the East Side, or even the entirety of this neighborhood. One person proudly proclaimed they had fought off 5 different rezone requests on this very same parcel. 5. This is the reason why many developments have located on the edges of town or in lower income neighborhoods where objectors are few. Buried in the staff report is a note that must not be lost. The property was actually zoned commercial neighborhood previously, a much more intense use. It was only downzoned to R5 after the Great Recession, when the previous owner was running into hard financial times, was trying to save on property taxes. That's the only reason why we're here tonight. Our proposal is much less dense than what was originally allowed and is compatible with the future land use map. To be clear on scale, this proposal is for a small boutique townhome community of only 28 units of smaller 2- and 3-bedroom floor plans. To put this in perspective, the Athens Mall redevelopment is 1,200 units. The adjacent neighborhood is over 400 units. Again, we're proposing 28 units compared to over 400 units in the adjacent neighborhood, 1,200 units at the mall. But not that big. We believe this is the best use by far for the site, represents an ideal transition between heavy commercial in front and single family residential behind. Athens continues to face a housing shortage, and this community would provide much needed quality housing in an attractive location. We are based locally, take pride in our work, love to do a good project here. And we hope to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal?
Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. My name is Wendy Todd and I live at 240 Timber Creek Drive. I've been a resident of the East Side since March of 2016, and I love living over here. I believe this new development will bring much needed economic growth to our area. The new residents will ongoing consumers of the goods and services provided by the local community. I'm also getting to that age where I don't want to be responsible for lawn maintenance and upkeep to the exterior of my home, which makes these condos very attractive to me. And I wish there were more opportunities for that kind of housing for people of my age. In all honesty, I cannot think of a downside to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Todd. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of?
Hey, Cameron Ford. I'm the pastor of Grand Acres Baptist Church, and I'm an East Sider, and I really am excited about all that's happening in our community. What you don't hear is the Friends of East Side group. Ken even encouraged me to get up here. You don't hear of the East Side business group that gathers at our church, the Lower Fellowship Hall. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in our community. Even the Little League team won for the first time in 10 years. My son was on that team, you know. So I see all the progress being made. We finally got the Kmart demolished. And this to me makes a lot of sense. Now, I know you might think, well, of course it makes sense to me. I'm the pastor. This would be a sell for us. But it does make sense for the Barnett Shoals corridor. It makes sense to see all the movement, the walkability, the bikeability straight across. Our Kroger actually has a walk-up pharmacy. It's a really cool part of town to live in. And I think if you're an East Sider, it fits what's happening. It seems that these guys have jumped through all the hoops. Not to mention there are challenges. We have homeless issues from Kroger to Walmart, literally passing off cell phones, and then they encamp on this property. You've heard about this before. I've literally had our youth group there to pick up some of the stuff. It's really, really gross. And I think if you played the game, which would you rather? You'd probably rather this sort of community built. Positivity, some folks mentioned, where do the kids play? Well, they play on our playground at the church. Where do they play basketball? They literally come and shoot hoops in our parking lot. So we are a community space, maybe a farmer's market soon to be in our parking lot. We sit in the center of community. If you live there, you might have a different opinion. Finally, I just want to say, we are for the community. We've been there since 1951. And Preacher Greens is coming in, a new meat and three, literally to take from the history of our church and the community. And then maybe as a pastor, I'll just leave it like this. God is sovereign over all things, right? But we are responsible. And I want to be responsible. I want to be a good steward of our community, the full corridor from College Station down to Lexington Road, and see some really positive changes made. Thanks so much.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor?
Hello, my name is Jeremy Jones. I live at 720 Whit Davis Road. I'm speaking to you today to express my concern about the availability of housing and location in our county. As a single father of two on a single income, I understand the importance of finding affordable housing that meets the needs of my family. Unfortunately, I have seen firsthand the devastating effects of a shortage of long-term rentals and affordable homes in my hometown of Blue Ridge, Georgia. This shortage caused many locals to move out of the area, leading to a reliance on tourism as the county's main source of revenue. A housing shortage goes beyond just the availability of affordable homes. The shortage in my hometown led to a significant shortage of workers in the community, making it difficult for businesses to fill everyday jobs necessary for a fully functioning community. There was a ripple effect of economic decline that impacted the entire area. When I first moved to Athens, I noticed that the problem faced by Blue Ridge echoed across Clarke County. I believe a solution to this problem is to create communities that repurpose undeveloped land within the community while meeting the expectations of the community. An influx of consumers will contribute to economic development on the east side. The shortage of available housing in our community is a serious issue that affects everyone and the overall economic and mental health of our community. By building on existing land, we can ensure that many more people have access to the housing they need while also preserving the natural beauty of Athens. This plan will help to meet the challenges of the housing shortage by building market value homes with access to walking paths, biking, retail, and the bus line, while maintaining the natural beauty of Athens and preserving the privacy of the surrounding neighbors. If there was a project that was perfect for Athens, this project would meet all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there anyone else in the audience who you can favor of this proposal?
Good evening. My name's Jim Sullivan. I'm a UGA alumni, class of 1979, go Dogs. Like most students that graduate from UGA, I left Athens after that year to pursue my career. After being gone for 36 years, my family slowly started to migrate back to the Athens area. There was little available for housing at that point. We were looking for houses. We couldn't find something that was available and affordable to us to house our families. So we started renting. Since I left and I came back, so they moved back, my family started to move back in 2015. Slowly migrating back, I found that Athens had changed a lot, but it hadn't changed a lot. Places and memories that were there are no longer there anymore. And that's because of growth of Athens. Athens has grown lots in those 36 years. With progress and change comes growth, and the need for housing increases. Being the home of the University of Georgia, Athens will continue to move forward and change and grow. Progress can't be stopped and shouldn't be. It spurs economic growth. In 2004, I moved to the Panhandle of Florida. It was a small resort town that we considered paradise. It was undeveloped in 1980 when I made my first trip there. My parents bought the first set of property there. You could actually almost run down the beach naked and nobody would see you. We considered it paradise, but as anything goes, it started to evolve and grow, and people discovered the beach and everybody wanted to build down there, but the locals actually fought it with all their might and all the costs because they wanted to save their little piece of paradise. They didn't want to share it with anybody. But they did benefit from the growth. It continued to grow. The locals benefited from it. They wanted to enjoy their little piece of paradise. They didn't want anybody else to enjoy it. They fought against it. They were fortunate enough to be able to build their properties, but they didn't want anybody else to build on any other property there that would impede their views of the Gulf of Mexico or take on, any of the other growth for economic growth. But it didn't stop. You can't stop progress. That's why we have what we have today everywhere in the world, and the beach community just grew and prospered out there just like Athens has. Athens-Clarke County continues to progress, and the need for additional housing is essential to its growth. You can't lock down growth because that's the way something has always been and people don't want to change. The proposed project has all the factors that contribute to progress and growth. Housing needs are forever increasing and never satisfied. For those reasons, I support the proposed development. It will provide jobs, economic development, and housing to the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Is there anyone else in the audience who is here to speak in favor of this proposal?
Hi, everyone. My name is Deon Arnold, and I currently live on 450 Bridgewater Way here in Athens. Having called the city home for as long as I can remember, I'm here to express my support for the proposed Barnett Shoals development, recognizing it as a step towards addressing our city's evolving needs. This new community stands out not only as a solution to our housing demands, but also as a testament to our concerns of our existing residents. Integration is key, and I believe this project shows a great balance between growth and preservation. One important aspect is its potential impact on the economic growth of the surrounding businesses. By adding a thriving residential community, we strengthen the vitality of the local businesses in the surrounding area. The relationships between residents and local establishments is important when developing a new location. In conclusion, I urge you to consider not only the immediate need that the Barnett Shoals development addresses, but also the long-term positive impact it promises for our city. We should embrace progress that fosters economic growth, enhances our quality of life, and positions Athens as a place of thoughtful urban development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this proposal?
My name is Bill Holmes. I live at 135 Clyde Road. I'm speaking as a homeowner tonight. I was transferred to Athens in 1974. My wife and I began looking for a house, looked at numerous houses. She finally decided on one in Green Acres. So as a good husband, that's the one we bought. We've been there 50 years, same house, love Green Acres. We found out very quickly it was a great place to live. It was a great place to raise your children. We have 4, and there were so many kids in that area then. They were booming. It was a very vibrant subdivision. But unfortunately, I'd say through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, couldn't have been a better growing subdivision. And in the late 90s into the 2000s, we became kind of stagnant. There wasn't a whole lot of young families moving in. But over the last 5 years or so, several young couples, young families have started to move back into the subdivision. We see a lot of young couples jogging through the subdivision, pushing strollers. They got more energy than I do. But there is growth now in our subdivision, and we need that growth if we're going to maintain a viable subdivision. I feel like this project is going to continue to bring young people in. It's going to add to our community in Green Acres, and it's going to add to the community as a whole. So I firmly support this, and I hope that you guys can go with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Is there anyone else in the audience here to speak in favor of this proposal?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trent Berkey, and I live at 145 Peace Point. As a young member of the working class in Athens who plans on living here throughout their young adult life, this new development is right in line with what I and me and my peers will be looking for over the coming years. I've spent countless hours trying to find a place to live in Athens without breaking my budget, and it seems harder to find each day. Unfortunately, this is more than a common problem for people in my demographic, but a project like this offers a solution for many young adults and new families who want to be a part of this amazing community. Clarke County has been and will continue to be a top interest to motivated young adults who want to be a part of and contribute to our amazing city, which is all for none without offering them a place to call home. In conclusion, I find a bill like this and any more like it to be an ideal cure to one of the major problems facing Athens, also while having virtually no negative impact on the surrounding communities or business.
Thank you, Mr. Berkey. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? All right, at this time, we will open the floor. Want to speak against it, beginning with Mr. Middleton, I believe, who has.
I got one more for it.
Are you in favor? Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought I missed the vote. Hi, my name is Philip Ashford. I've been helping out Green Acres Baptist as a realtor with this piece of property, and I've followed the plight of this property since 2014, 2015, the Aldi rezone. And I didn't feel at the time that the commercial was the right fit for that piece of property due to, light pollution, nuisance, other factors that commercial uses can bring. And so when I was approached by the church about helping them out with this property, this is kind of what we envisioned that would be a win-win for the neighborhood and the larger community, as has already been mentioned here, the transitional zone between a very heavily commercial corridor and a single-family residential neighborhood. This seems like exactly the thing you would want. Thick vegetative buffers, a more dense, compact small multifamily development here. And it's, so I was very happy when Jeff and Blake came along and had a similar vision for the property and went for it. And I know there've been complaints about the plan. Nothing's perfect, but in the community's desires for, what this piece of property what they don't want it to be. I think a lot of the focus is on what people don't want to happen here. But I think it's important to emphasize that what's currently happening here, it's not Christopher Robin's 100-acre wood right there. It's there's problems with the the current land use as is, and I think this would be a big improvement for the entire community, provide reasonably priced housing stock in a walkable area. And just in closing, on a personal note, I'm more familiar with the other end of Athens towards Oconee, and one property I drive by a lot is the old Puritan Mill textile plant that for my entire lifetime has been a falling down attractive nuisance. That's there've been deaths and drownings, and shootings, and vandalism and fires, burglary, all my entire life that has been a source of concern for the police, that thing there. And finally, this same group has come along and they came up with a plan to turn that again into a different type of multifamily development there. But I think it's turned out very well, and I drive by that every single day. And as somebody who has my own attachments to the past, but an understanding that things need to change in a lot of ways, I was happy to see the way that turned out, and I think that this group will be able to do that for this piece of property.
Thank you, Mr. Last call. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up to anyone in the public who wishes to speak against the proposal, and we'll begin with Mr. Middleton, who requested additional time to speak on behalf of the homeowner association. Is that correct?
Yes, I've requested with Mr. Breachup a 10-minute slot that I will share with someone else.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Kent Middleton. I live at 195 Clyde Road in the Green Acres subdivision. I actually do live in the neighborhood. I'm president of the Green Acres Crestwood Community Association. I ask the commission tonight to again follow the advice of the planning department staff in your own vote of November to recommend denial of the proposal to rezone 2295 Barnett, Shoals, and 170 Forest Road. I ask you to agree with some 30 Green Acres homeowners who expressed opposition to the rezoning request at a meeting on February 27th at the Fire Hall. And a similar number showed up in an earlier meeting that I called. And there were a few people there that did support the proposal, but about 25 out of 30 that did not. The proposal is not an infill proposal compatible with the Green Acres neighborhood. Rather, the developer, who specializes in student housing, proposes to construct housing that is almost identical to the 2- and 3-bedroom rental units the company built as a greenfield project on Research Drive. It is hardly a boutique product that they are recommending. In the greenfield project, the developer did not need to consider neighborhood design or traditions because there's no nearby neighborhood on Research Drive. Building an infill project in Green Acres, the developer should complement the neighborhood, maybe even elevate it. Green Acres is designated by the future land use map as a traditional neighborhood. A traditional neighborhood envisions strict design standards to, quote, ensure appropriateness of design and to protect the neighborhood character. The Green Acres character is a well-established, canopied neighborhood of solid mid-century homes, often constructed of brick and featuring hardwood floors in many cases throughout. The majority are owned by long-term residents headed to their homes and to their neighborhood. As the planning department pointed out, the Baptist Church property is a parcel calling for a unique development consistent with a long-established neighborhood. Planning staff says the church property does not deserve as the developer proposes, quote, a mid-density cul-de-sac providing one type of housing. The developer's plan offers a transition from the commercial corridor
to the Green Acres neighborhood that is, as the planning staff concludes, too abrupt. The developer says its proposal is offered with missing middle housing in mind. But the planning department staff concludes correctly, I believe, that the proposed project does not qualify as missing middle housing. Quote, due to the number of units, the uniformity of the housing type, and the lack of integration with the surrounding area. There is demand for missing middle housing, demand by millennials, boomers, and others seeking smaller, more affordable homes than are generally found in an RS-25 district and under the $375,000 that the proposed houses would sell for. Examples of missing middle architecture and footprints that might be compatible with Green Acres include townhouses in Stratford, duplexes in Drayton Square and Greystone, cottage court design at Addyville, and various houses, including small houses in the 1010 Oglethorpe project. I hope the Baptist Church will talk with the Green Acres community, as well as with developers and the planning department, to fashion a high-quality housing plan compatible with Green Acres neighborhood. There are many other deficiencies in the rezoning proposal, including too many cars, spot zoning at 170 Forest Road, and others. My neighbor, Andy Herod, the former District 8 Commissioner, will address some of those deficiencies now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to follow up with what Kent said. I do want to start off, though, and say that I really object to the developer characterizing my neighbors as being a small handful of complainers. Every single person, with the exception of one person who's come down and spoken in favor of this, doesn't live anywhere near this neighborhood. And the one person who does live in the neighborhood who's spoken in favor of it is an elder at the church. So we need to put that to one side. I did send you a long letter. I am known for being verbose, so I'm not going to read it here. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I have 8 things I wanted to say. I'm just going to read them off. This proposal does not match your middle missing designation in the comp land use plan as per the planning staff's report. You cannot have, or your missing middle is supposed to have a variety of housing types on the piece of property, not to get variety by melding that with properties that are around. The developer said this is not spot zoning. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This is a spot zone of a particularly egregious type by rezoning the house at 170 Forest from RS25 to RM1. If you do that, the third point I want to make is that 140 Forest then becomes basically an RS25 orphan. And then there'll be pressure on that to rezone that to some kind of commercial development and perhaps link it up with the other commercial development that's Barnett Shoals Road. You all have just been addressing the issue of short-term rentals and have made a recommendation to the Mayor and Commission that distinguishes between short-term rentals in RM property, RM zone property, and single family. If this becomes RM1, this will be, I have no doubt, some of these properties will become long-term Airbnb short-term rentals, which will have many, many negative consequences, particularly for the people who live adjacent to this. The developers say that it's not going to be for students. I beg to differ. This is a 3-minute walk from the vet school. It's a 5-minute walk from, a 5-minute drive from campus. The developer is a developer of student housing. This is not the right place for this kind of student development. And I think that even if these are properties that are sold, some of them will be bought by parents who will put them in their child's name so that they can claim the homestead exemption. And so you will not be getting as much of the property tax that perhaps the developer is suggesting that you might make or the county might gain. And then they will probably rent out 1 or 2 of the other bedrooms to their friends. So this will basically be rental. Many of these will be rental property. This is an autocentric development. They talk about walkability. If that's the case, why are they asking for 12% more parking spaces than the code requires? So this tells me that this is not what this is a bait and switch, basically. They say that there's not going to be an impact of traffic. There's a total of 89 parking spaces requested. I would agree with them if they had access out onto Barnett Shoals Road, where that multi-path they're proposing. If they had access onto the road there, traffic would not be an issue, but they don't. So what's going to happen, people are going to come out of there, they're going to turn left onto Forest, they're going to get caught at that light, which is in the intersection with Kroger. And often, when it's busy, you can often only get 2 or 3 cars out that traffic light on one cycle. So what they're going to do is they're going to turn right, and then they're either going to turn left, and then get onto Greencrest and come up to where the bank is, where the Bank of America is, where there's a traffic light and a red light camera, because that was run so many times that the county put a red light camera in there. Or they're going to come out, they're going to turn right again, and they're going to try and get out of the road, which is opposite the vet school, which does not have a traffic light and is really dangerous to try and turn left out of when there's a lot of traffic there. So if you don't think that this is going to be a problem with traffic, I would recommend that you come and sit at College Station Road in the first 3 weeks of the semester, full semester, between about 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. It is a parking lot. So I simply don't believe that this is not going to be a problem with traffic. Finally, we already have sufficient RM properties coming online. It's my understanding that based upon properties that have been approved and that either come online or are in the process of being constructed that have been approved by the Mayor and Commission since 2018. There's 18,000 single-family bedrooms coming online. What we're missing is cottage-type developments. And I'm really disappointed that the church has not done a better job of coming to the neighborhood. If this piece of property were rezoned RS15, to put in a cottage type development, you would have the neighborhood coming down to welcome this. That is a better transition than what's being proposed.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Brad Henkins. I live at 598 Forest Road, a few blocks up from 170 Forest Road. Quite a few of us, the longtime residents of Green Acres, have met with Mr. Underwood and the proposed developers more than once over the past year or so. And we have made it crystal clear that we are opposed to the current proposal. The response is always the same. No one ever wants property developed. While that could be true, it is entirely dismissive of our concerns. Mr. Middleton has said, we have objected to each proposal so far, not because we are opposed to change of any sort. It's because each of the proposals has been the wrong proposal for this site. In each meeting that we've had with Mr. Underwood, we have said out loud what it is that we want at that site and what it is we would not oppose. We want RS15 cottage style housing. This would complement the neighborhood and it would be a much better fit, as Mr. Harrod just explained, with the county's objectives going forward. That's all of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henkins. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal?
Hi, my name is Trey Froley. I live at 180 Stillwood Court, right off of Brookwood Drive in Green Acres. I oppose of what is planned. I agree with Andy and the rest of them. Make it RS15 and make it cottage type housing. Before we moved into Green Acres, we looked, there was no type housing. We wanted established neighborhood. Putting what's proposed there at the price point that they want. My sister's a paramedic in Athens. She can't afford that. As when I was a firefighter before I retired, I can't afford those. So yes, you're losing people. They're moving out. What's going to be bought there is real estate companies, moms and dads, run them down and rent them. I see it in my line of work. I work for Spectrum. I go to all these apartments, condos. They are students. I was over next to one of his developments the other night. Decided to shoot bottle rockets at us. We don't need that there. They thought they were having a party. That's fine, have a party. But when I'm working near one of those are the worst things to work next to. And that's what's coming into our established neighborhood. And when we are here, I don't mind cottage type houses. That's what I want, because it's a nice step down into our neighborhood. Not two-story built right up on each other, condos, townhomes at the price point they want. You're not going to get the young families. You're not going to get the single fathers. You're not going to get the single mothers moving in because they can't afford it. What you need is affordable housing, cottage type, so young families can move in. I don't oppose any development. Just do the right development.
Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to?
Hi, my name is Hilda Mat, and I live in 120 Brookwood Drive, what you will call kind of ground zero here. I bought my house 13 years ago. It had been a rental for years. But I bought the house because I could afford it. It was under 100,000. I could not possibly afford a house that's $375, even if I wanted to. I have a PhD, I work at the university, I have worked my entire life, and it is not something I could afford. So I am grateful that I found this house in Green Acres that is going to be within 400 feet of this new construction. So basically what I want to say, I live in a street where there are families with children and they still, play in the street somehow, and in the street, and everybody is careful and everybody knows that the children will be there and to just, go slow. I don't know if when it gets busier and people are trying to go out the other exits, because we will back up in Forest, they will be aware that there are children sometimes playing on that road. And one last thing, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but since God has been brought into this discussion, it is my understanding as a Christian that I am that caring for the hungry, the poor, and the homeless is part of the responsibility of a church also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mata. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal?
Hello, I'm Sinclair Jackson and I live at 290 Forest Road, which is about a block from the proposed site. My main concerns, I just wanted to say first too, that I appreciate the developers trying to address the concerns of the neighborhood. And I understand that the church wants to sell the property, but really nothing has changed. Even though these will be for sale, I don't believe they'll be owner occupied. They'll become rentals, probably students. And then over time, they'll decline, as we've seen with the old Tivoli apartments. Every time there's a homicide over there, they have to change the name of the apartment complex. There was also concern about, mentioned earlier about the access for fire trucks and service vehicles being able to get in and out adequately. I think a better use for the property would be a geriatric facility. Then we wouldn't have as many concerns about the neighbors. Old folks tend to be too rowdy. There'd be an occasional ambulance in from time to time. I just don't feel that this is appropriate for our neighborhood. My husband didn't question, why do we have planning and zoning? If we're going to grant variances all the time or amend the plan. I'm wondering now if my neighbor decides to sell his house, is a developer going to buy it, tear it down and put in a quadruplex? This is a road a path that we're starting to go down that I really think we need to consider. Every step you take, every change you make is a step in another direction. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition?
Hello, I'm Melanie Aaron, 165 Clyde Road, Green Acres. I grew up in Green Acres. My parents built a home on Clyde with a VA loan. It was the only place that my parents could afford to build. It was not affordable for us. We had rented years ago, mainly in the Five Points area, but they could not afford to build there. They found a place to build in Green Acres, bought a lot that had some problems, but luckily now that's 100 by 100 foot organic garden where the problem was water underneath and, not stable enough to build on. And they built that home to fit the little spot that was buildable on there, which ended up being a blessing because it's garden. I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Mr. Middleton, Mr. Harrod, all my neighbors have said about what we want here. I do not want this rezoned. It sets such a bad precedent to me and takes us down a road where we can't come back from. Once you set precedents, you've set them. This is a perfect place for a cottage neighborhood. Like everyone has said, that's what we've asked about over and over. You could flip that buffer over to the Barnett Shoals side and put in a pocket neighborhood with somewhat, houses with no steps where some older people who can't handle steps anymore, don't want the steps, could actually maybe buy a smaller home, less yard to take care of. Someone could have a tomato out in their yard, grow some flowers with their children. You could back that up onto the houses around it, which I used to hear people call starter homes. Well, for a lot of people, those starter homes are their forever homes. And that's what I would like to see here. Something that maybe somebody might have as a starter home as a young family, but something that somebody might have as a forever home or their retirement home. Green Acres is a very special neighborhood. Came back to Green Acres when my father passed away. I've been in Athens my whole life, and I really love this town. It really means a lot to me. There's a lot of people that know that. It needs to be compatible with the neighborhood. It doesn't need to be rezoned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal?
Hi, my name is Laura David. I live at 155 Clyde Road. I'm also a lifelong Athens resident, and my family's been in Green Acres for over 50 years. I do agree about the cottages. I think that's a much better use and would not lend itself to the kind of off-site investment company buying these and running them as Airbnbs. Would not so much be parents from Atlanta buying the kid, the condo in Athens. All of that being said, because these are likely to be rentals, no matter how they were packaged, there's no question that 76 residents and the traffic projections they're just not supported by any data. I'm really concerned about the lack of a traffic impact analysis. I don't believe the projection of only 76 residents. There's no regulation that prevents more residents. People are allowed to share a bedroom, but If it were only 76 residents, I don't believe the guess of 1.86 trips and all this. They have not done any study. What should be done is game day traffic, rush hour traffic. There should be multiple studies when you're going to impact a neighborhood like this, when an established older neighborhood like this, which does have a lot of seniors, a lot of children. There's no question that for public safety, there needs to be traffic impact analysis. We already have enough difficulty with traffic backing up at the camera light and people coming in and out, turning the way they're not supposed to, in and out of that bank. So we've already had inroads of commercial into the neighborhood. But if you put that additional backup going on so close to College Station Road, despite the fact that it's a different access point, that College Station Road backs up too. I mean, that whole area, Andy's right that it's a parking lot. It's really on any exit from Green Acres. If you go at the right times, you will see that this is not a low traffic area. People avoid all of those entrances whenever possible. Thank you.
David, is there any other member of the public here to speak in opposition to this proposal?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm Jim Miner. I live at 210 Ponderosa Drive. The traffic's already too much. I don't know what the impact of the study is, but it's way too much. When the super Kroger comes in, boy howdy, it's gonna be big time, okay? And the deal is these apartments or whatever, are they for sale or whatever? I don't know, are they? Yes. Are they for sale? Rent.
We don't generally take questions, but the short answer is that yes, the applicant has stated it will be condominiums for.
Well, there is no affordable housing. Just take that off the picture. The houses are not, the apartments are not gonna be that nice for the area. It's just, you can't even come out of Kroger and turn left. So I don't know how they're gonna do this. It's the impact is too much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Miner. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal?
Hello, my name is Matthew Mendocino. I'm a lifetime resident of Athens. I grew up in Green Acres, the house I currently reside in. I live at 125 Brookwood Drive. My family's been in Green Acres for about 55 years now, so a long time. My family and I reside in 125 and 135 Brookwood Drive, which, as you can see on the map, are directly adjacent to the zone of interest here. So that being said, and as a person, as my fellow neighbors who border this property can also attest to, is that we as someone who has the most at stake here, who's directly adjacent to this development, I stand firmly against it. I think it could be put to better use. I feel that I agree with the cottage ideas. I agree with the single family housing that could be put back there. And again, just firmly against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendocino. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? Okay, we will bring the discussion behind the rail. Does anyone want to start us off?
Get a chance for a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course, the applicant does get an opportunity for response to the public comment.
2 minutes. All right, that's a lot. That's not much. All right, real fast. So again, traffic, using the national traffic studies, the things that's been studied forever and ever on so many different developments. We're talking 3 cars at that light every hour. 1 car every 3 minutes. So if we have so much housing coming, as they mentioned, why are we in a housing crisis? Where's the new housing that nobody can get, that so many people talk about around town? Missing middle, townhomes are literally in the missing middle range, and in the study. Obviously, everybody has a different definition of missing middle, and we can probably debate that all night long. We do have a variety of floor plans and how, unit types. We have 2 and 3 bedroom options, multiple elevations, talking about design and that kind of thing. Hear a lot about students and, this, idea that unwanted people are going to show up in these condos. If this can be students, can not any development that we approve be students? If this is the litmus test, can we never approve any new developments? They talked, they mentioned that we're only a student housing developer. That is not true. We've done student housing, but we're also conventional housing. We just got approved for a townhome community over on Jennings Mill Parkway. That'll be 86 units. That is, on the road behind Sam's. That is obviously not student housing. Talk about this being zoned RS-15 and developed to that standard. That is not possible with the code, with the access here. It's not possible. I think it'd be a bad precedent that would be set here if, and it showed that Athens is really truly not willing to do infill housing. This is an opportunity to show Athens is truly committed to adding infill walkable developments.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Oh, and we're not a voluntary HOA. It would be a mandatory HOA to fix a lot of those problems and arguments that people talk about of the negative impacts.
How much is the HOA?
All right.
Kristen.
So question for staff, because the zoning history of this property is fascinating to me. And I remember a good bit of it. I definitely remember the Aldi bit. My question is more like, recognizing that at one point the convenience store was in play, right? So when that fell out of the picture, whatever zoning iterations came after that, how would that property have been developed with, how would access to that property be created? Does that make sense?
Access has been the main issue all along. Trying to get the intersection alignment with College Station Road is the #1 priority. Without that opportunity, there was a moment where this was looked at as a right-in only coming off of Barnett Shoals with a decel lane. The challenge there is there wasn't enough frontage for that decel lane to happen without impacting the neighboring property or at that other corner.
Yeah.
And then the notion behind that was to fix the situation of getting somebody out of the lane of traffic so that that through traffic can kind of move through, because you have an interesting thing happen at that light with it being a 3-way intersection. Anybody who's gone through that, you sit for the left, you pull over out of that lane into the right hand to go through, and then you kind of make a choice as you continue on down Barnett Shoals where you're going to be. That amount of frontage is limited to make that happen. So finding a point of access, whether it was the service station to the south or the one immediately to the north, there have been different discussions about how to come through there and access this property. And none of them have gelled into an actual development scheme that's been able to take place.
So without any sort of cooperation from those commercial properties, the only way to develop this property, no matter what it's zoned, is by taking one of the residential properties and finding a way through that property.
Yeah, that's the only other property that's adjacent.
The other question I had was, because I do remember last time we saw this, and I remember my 2 main recollections of that conversation were the walking path accessing the shopping area and the general design of the of the development and just how it just seemed kind of cookie cutter and bland and how it was an opportunity to do something interesting. That's my recollection. The walking path is new. Is there anything else that's different from the last time we saw it?
Stephen?
They flipped the stormwater and the dog park, which you can see right here.
Yeah.
Those were over here last time.
Okay.
Otherwise, and then they added this walking path. Everything else is basically the same.
The buildings are the same. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's, oh, and I do have a question for the developer. What would be the price point that these would be offered at?
You come back up?
We'd be looking at 325 to 400,000.
And a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom?
2 and 3 bedroom units. So that's the 325 to 400,000.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say, because in general, I am not opposed to developing this property, but I'm just disappointed that we're kind of getting like a development that, to me, honestly, it seems like there wasn't a whole lot of thought to it. It was kind of like, oh, look, I have this thing, I can put it in this space. And that's what we have. Rather than thinking about the larger neighborhood. You know, I like the idea of a cottage court. I think something between a cottage court and this might be a better, you know, I would always love to challenge developers to come to us with cool ideas and we can try to make it happen rather than saying, oh, RS-15 won't work. Let's try to make it work. I'd rather have something cool and interesting working in a space that the neighborhood also wants to embrace rather than something that's just kind of shoehorned in because this is the maximum number of things we could get on the slot. So those are my thoughts. Happy to hear others.
Sure.
I'm struggling with this one for sure, and I guess a couple questions. So this thing with RS-15 keeps coming up. That's just absolutely not technically possible. Like we have, right now we have requirements that an RS-15 lot has street frontage. That's the biggest problem. Also, a cottage on an RS-15, so it's a 15,000 square foot lot, that's not missing middle housing. I don't know how that even got into the discussion. I do like the idea of cottages, but I kind of backing up a little bit. I have a question about the zoning history as well. I don't remember who said it in the group of speakers, but is it true that the former property owner had it rezoned right after the Great Recession to reduce property taxes? Is that a fair characterization of what happened?
I don't, the rezone occurred.
Yes.
I'm not really sure about the motivation, but the rezone occurred, yeah.
And kind of around that time frame.
I just interject since I was on the commission. I don't remember that being part of the discussion.
Right. But it was someone, an applicant asked like, hey, can I make this like less intensive zoning? And it wasn't like part of a county-wide down zoning, okay.
And the request was to match the zoning.
And to clarify, it went from CN.
PD. There was a CNPD. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to continue the discussion. I'm not sure what to do on this one. It does seem like a really difficult property. Even the RS-15 scenario that's been brought up, or cottages, like there still is an access problem that it sounds like it will never be solved. Access at Barnett Shoals is not really something big would have to change. If any, is that even possible?
Or, well, with the plan development that was previously approved, the Chevron station was a part of it, and that provided access. It allowed for that additional frontage to be a part of the development scheme.
I see, that was lined up with College Station right there.
That's right.
And are the buildings that are now there, would that make that impossible? The buildings that are on that gas station property, are they too close to that potential right of way?
To do a different kind of access point?
Well, if you had like another PD, or if you, If you ever wanted to create something right there, are the commercial buildings that are right there, are they too close to it?
The structures themselves are not the issue per se, although that service station, the convenience store building is awful close. But the alignment coming in off of Barnett Shoals Road could avoid the building. It's just having a property owner that's willing to be a part of the development scheme.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear what other people are thinking.
Oh, go ahead. I am sharing the tornness in this room right now. There are some things that this is one of the really interesting zoning discussions where you have very cogent arguments on both sides. So, you know, everybody has some really thoughts and support for their arguments. I do have one quick question for the developer, and that is, will there be any of the units with masters on main?
All of our 3-bedroom floor plans have master on main. The two bedroom, just the size of the downstairs, they do not have a master on main. So there's 8 2-bedroom units and there's 20 3-bedroom units. So majority of them are master on main.
That is important because it's someone who's hoping to age in place. I guess I am currently aging in place. It's very graceful.
Just right there.
Yeah, aging as we speak. You know, that kind of product is extremely important. I do have to agree that the student rental issue, I've had to put that aside in thinking about this development and so many others, because it's true, I don't understand why parents or investors wouldn't buy the cottages. You know, they would make excellent Airbnb, you know, permanent Airbnbs. So that I just gotta have to set that aside of my own consideration. I'm also, you know, I have friends who live on the east side, and if I go to their house for dinner, I time it so that I don't hit, because they are not exaggerating. It is crazy at rush hour. The infrastructure between the east side and downtown is terrible. 3 ways and none of them are good. And all those people, all those neighborhoods who live there. It's hard for me to imagine that, you know, 28 more units would be more than a drop in the bucket of that. And I do know that we have, you know, federally approved and professionally approved guidelines that suggest that this would be a drop in the bucket in terms of that. So students and traffic, we all deal with that all over town. And we've got ways to mitigate that. What my concerns are, and I share these with Sarah and Kristen, is I was really hoping to see something just a little more interesting looking. I know we've got to balance affordability and aesthetics, but you know, I feel like I'm not in the building business, so I won't talk about what I feel like. But it seems that there can at least be some variations in the, you know, the front facing parts. Anything like that would sort of break up that line that does make it look a little bit like a townhouse development off, you know, Pleasant Hill Road in Gwinnett County. In terms of what's being suggested as the price point, in between speakers, I did a quick mortgage calculator for the 375 that the neighborhood was citing. The monthly payment would be around $2,000 a month with a 20% down payment. That's not cheap, but it is middle compared to a lot of the single family home prices we have in town. So yes, a firefighter couldn't afford it, but maybe a firefighter married to a police officer or a school teacher. it's not affordable in the sense that it is affordable for poor people, but it is more affordable for people who are trying to move up the housing chain, who maybe want to move from rental to, and they've been saving that for a down payment. So I'm not concerned about the price point either. I guess it really centers on something that would be more attractive. I do understand what the neighbors are saying. It is a beautiful neighborhood. It's got so many lovely aspects to it. I don't think this property undeveloped is doing the neighborhood a whole lot of favors. I have been hearing from friends who live in the area that it's become a bit of a problem property. The thing that is hard for us as, an advisory board, or later when it gets to the mayor and commission, a decision-making board, the thing that's hard to take into account is the needs of the people who would live here. And honestly, I think because of, everyone agrees that we have a shortage of a variety of housing. We have plenty of some kinds and not any of others. And a kind of age in place condo is one of those that we don't have very many of. I have to take the existing neighborhood into account, but I also need to think about the larger community that surrounds it, and the families that need this kind of property to help them move from rental to maybe someday a detached single family home. So this is what I'm weighing out. I always like to think, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But maybe don't let the bad be the enemy of the good. This is kind of where I'm sitting at the moment, but so I really want to hear from other people as well.
Have Joey and then me.
First, I'm going to say I agree with some of the points that Alice just made. I set the student aside as well, because we live in a college town. The majority of us, I would dare say, moved to this town because of the University of Georgia. So students have the right to live wherever they so choose, and parents, we have the right to buy property and own property for our kids to live in wherever they so choose, and we should not discriminate upon that. The price point doesn't bother me, because the average price point in Green Acres right now, the solds were $365,000, and the average own active listings are $322,000. So I'm excited to know that the Green Acres subdivision wants affordable housing, that the people who spoke against this price point would like to keep their prices down lower, because that is what their market is showing right now. This is right in line with that. And when you look at affordability is what someone can afford. And it is a move up type development, just as Green Acres has become a move up type development. There are no more $100,000 homes in Green Acres. So it gives an opportunity if someone wants to live somewhere, and I would like a newer home. I live in a home built in 1965 because I renovated, and it was a move up home for the subdivision in which I live in, and I could go and renovate it. And now that home is a lot more valued, and so are all of our neighbors. So Green Acres is a great move up neighborhood. It is not a starter neighborhood. This is a great opportunity for another link between a transition zoning from commercial to the neighborhood. I talked to someone not long ago that lives in Green Acres, and I asked them, I said, would you be happy with a 24-foot concrete block wall there with an Audi backed up to you with trucks coming and you hear them beeping, backing up, unloading? Well, that's what you almost had without even coming to us. It was going to be there. You put cottage style housing in there, the price point will be higher because you'll have less housing there. That's the nature of the beast. That's how it will be. So I look at the infill housing. We talk so many times with developments about being walkable, the walkability. Adding the path for walkability increases that property. To me, it makes this a better fit. If you were to put cottages up here, you're going to have less units. You're going to have a higher price point. And all we heard, but the big concern we heard was affordability. I love the fact that there's master owned domain for the majority of these. That is a age in place. A lot of people, as it was said, don't want to mow their lawn, don't want to do that. They're happy with an HOA that all that's taken care of because now they don't have to pay the lawnmower or the lawn guy or whatever they so choose to do to maintain their property on the outside. It was also brought up that the majority of the people that spoke for it don't live in the property. Well, this is about the community. It ain't about just the people who live down the street. It's about the entire community because the people may not have been able to afford that $365,000 price point. Now there's an option that they have a townhome that they can afford, that they couldn't afford Green Acres originally. This property is tough to develop because of where it sits. It's a tough spot. And I think the church wants to do the right thing. There's been said many times that there is a homeless problem there. Well, we've got a homeless problem all over Athens, and that's another discussion. That's another topic. That's something that the mayor and commission need to take up. That's not for us to discuss. This is an opportunity to clean this property up. And I speak in favor of it, especially with the units being sold. We've heard there's 418 houses in there, and roughly, I think 60 or 70, maybe 80 people are members of their HOA. So it's not even, y'all can all do the math, not even a quarter of the people there that's a member of the HOA in there. And 8 of the 5 that back up to this are rental property. And it was brought up about short-term rental and rental property. Well, aside from what was done in the mayor and commission, short-term rental is not really it's not a problem the way it's making out to be, and rental property is not a problem the way it's making out to be. So you got 8 of the 15 right here. If rental property was such a problem, then fix that. 50% of your people right there, you just said, is the rental property that was the problem with people moving in. So I think this is a great, I'm in support of it because I think it's the right fit here. If you go down the cottage route or you change it up, you're going to increase the price even more. And that's not what we've heard. So I do think this has a positive impact.
Yeah, I'll just add that, I appreciate all the public comment on both sides of it. I agree with Joey that the point, trying to dismiss the people who spoke in favor of it because they don't live in the neighborhood is offensive. They're Athenians and they're here to express their opinion about a housing crisis that is citywide. And so it seems to me that, I take the neighborhood's views into account. I also think that we all need to think about the people who would benefit from these homes. And the housing need in Athens is enormous. The housing need in Athens is, by the city's own consultant, is over 5,400 units of housing that is needed here in Athens. And I think the depth of our housing need is extraordinary, and there's really no way out of it but to build because our population has grown. That's why we have the housing shortfall, and it's still growing because our commission's doing a pretty good job. Our economic development people are doing a pretty good job of bringing in a lot of new, fairly high-paying jobs. And so those people are going to need homes. Our population is growing faster than we are building right now. So we're in the hole and we're not building our way out of it nearly fast enough. I think it's an observation that I have from being on the planning commission now, going on 5 years, that a lot of people feel as though if they live near a project, they ought to have a veto over a proposal on that project. And, they certainly ought to have input, but I think that the county commission, which is the ultimate decision-making body, has to make a decision about what's right for the county. And we often see, the applicant mentioned this is absolutely true, that people who oppose a project are just far more likely to come out and speak at a public meeting because, these meetings are long. Some people find them boring. I don't know why, but they certainly don't. And people don't always have the free time in their schedule to come out, except, particularly parents with young children. We had a single father speak in favor of the project. He has 2 kids at home. We don't often have younger adults able to make the time to come to an evening meeting on a weeknight at dinner time and speak in favor of a project. And so the deck is stacked, the way we do public input, the deck is stacked to make it seem like there's more opposition. Like, you know, we get a vocal minority that does not, I think, represent the community's views as a whole, all Athenians. Their views are certainly entitled to be taken into account, but I would just remind everyone, there's a lot of people who would be served by new housing in Athens who are able to be here tonight. I think we could take account of their views too. I think just a couple other things. I think for this site, as Sarah mentioned a few minutes ago, any RS zoning in Athens requires street frontage for each and every lot. So the idea, well, couldn't you do cottages on RS 15 or S8 or whatever? The answer is you got to put in a 400-foot road running off of Forest Road, and it has to be a city street with, you know, the width of a city street and with gutter and all that stuff. It has to be built to street standards that are more demanding than, to my understanding, than this. It must have sewer main, water main, et cetera, all running up that street. So the infrastructure costs are pretty significant to do that, which doesn't mean it necessarily couldn't be done. It's just that the price points can be a lot higher. I heard a lot of people say, these don't feel affordable to me, you know, and they're certainly more affordable than most of what's for sale in Athens right now. New construction is generally going to be, you know, at the higher end. And this is very low for new construction in this day and age, unfortunately. But it's only going to be worse. You know, the folks who think, well, if there were cottages here that were detached on separate parcels, you know, those are going to be dramatically more expensive. Brand new cottages on this parcel with a road, the price point's just going to be significantly higher. It's going to be, those houses are not going to be affordable to a firefighter and a nurse or whatever, you know, the middle income people. So it seems clear to me that the right use for this from a land use perspective is housing. You know, I think that minimizes the impact on the neighborhood. I like that the developer's trying to do housing there. Can't really be done as RS zoned housing because of rules Clarke County has that drive up the costs of RS zoned housing, which leaves you with RM. And townhomes are, as Alice mentioned, I think far more affordable. You know, so I think medium density housing like this is probably the only thing that is economically feasible on this site. And so at the end of the day, we're not facing a choice of, can we have half as much housing versus can we have this much housing? The choice is, you know, a couple dozen units or no housing. It's going to sit there as a undeveloped parcel, which maybe what some of the neighborhood would prefer. But I think from the county level, you know, we desperately need housing. We desperately need medium density housing, which is what this is, that produces more property tax per acre. There are studies all over the country showing that half acre lots, which is what Green Acres is, RS 25, half acre lots require more upkeep in terms of road infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure, other utilities. The costs to Clarke County of maintaining Green Acres are more than all the property taxes the county collects from Green Acres, which may sound shocking. You look at your property tax bill and it looks like a lot of money, but you know, road contractors are expensive. All those things are really expensive. And so half acre lots invariably require a subsidy from the other residents of the community. And so Green Acres, sadly, and no offense, is not able to pay its own costs of upkeep for Clarke County infrastructure. If we don't do some higher density, moderate density housing in there, then the people who live on those in those lovely homes on those lovely are requiring a subsidy from everyone else in Clarke County. And so it seems to me that from the county's perspective, from a land use perspective, housing on this site, townhomes on this site, greater property tax revenue from this site, it seems clearly the right choice. And I guess maybe the last thing I wanted to say is a couple of people mentioned, you know, wish it was more interesting looking. And you know, I'm not an architect. I don't know, it looked okay to me. I've seen more interesting looking things, I'll say that, but I think we are a land use body. We don't really, I don't think it's for us to say like, can you make the townhome more in accordance with my aesthetics? You know, I think that our jurisdiction begins and ends with land use. And to me, townhomes on this site are exactly the right use for this site for all the reasons that I mentioned. Sarah, and then Alex.
Okay, I'll try not to cover anything that anyone else has already covered too much. I want to second pretty much everything Matt just said. I want to note that the currently and recently for sale in Green Acres are twice as expensive as defined affordable housing. It's not an affordable neighborhood now. I know that it might seem like it if you've lived there for a long time, but for people who are moving in, it is just not that anymore unless you're inheriting. You know, when I say affordable, I mean HUD defined affordable. And as we've already mentioned, the new construction here would cost less than the current older houses in Green Acres. So it is a step up in terms of affordability. I wanted to bring to everyone's memory the Walmart neighborhood market that was perhaps going to be downtown at one point. That is now a parking garage because people thought that we could do better than a Walmart neighborhood market. And like, sure, every single parcel, we can always think of better things that could be there. But that is just not how any of this goes. I did also want to address the RS-15 cottage court idea. I know that y'all weren't here. I don't think any of you were when we had our hearings and discussion about Micah's Creek, which is the Habitat for Humanity project. That's going in off Oak Street. That was a really unique project. It had smaller houses. It wasn't necessarily a cottage court, but you know, it was in that idea of like, let's try something new. That required a lot of money and resources to develop because it required 1,000 variances from our code. And I'm hearing people say like, oh, well, we can't approve a rezone because we can't change the rules. We can't make changes. But then say that they would want something that requires 1,000 broken rules in order to be made at all. And as others have mentioned, it would be significantly less affordable than what is being proposed here. Also, I mean, one such variance is that in RS right now, it's 1,000 square foot minimum requirement for a house. I live in a 1,000 square foot house. That's not a cottage. I wanted to note for a concern, under the approved short-term rental regulations, short-term rentals, and please correct me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, they are permitted as a special use in RM districts. Is that right? I'm remembering that correctly, right?
Yeah. It varies, whether it's a home occupation or whether it's.
But yes, yeah, whether it's a so to say that they are permitted in RM districts, they are barely permitted more than they are in RS districts. By requiring they get a special use, you can ask the men of Phi Kappa Tau how easy it is to get a special use permit. They will tell you all about it. If y'all don't want short-term rentals in an RM neighborhood that's near you, you can come back. That is what the special use permit process is for. I wanted to just pull the numbers. We said, this is 28 units being added to a 418 unit neighborhood. That is an increase of population by 6%. I wanted to note from the staff report that the Transportation and Public Works Department reviewed and recommended approval of the proposal and offered the comment that the traffic generated by this proposed project is minimal and does not cause any issues of concern. I appreciate skepticism, and I'm the last person who will say, you know, just take the developer's word for it that it's not a problem, which is why I love our staff reports and how they go through our Transportation and Public Works Department, our Public Utilities Department, the arborist, and the fire marshal, so that they can make comments. If this were to be approved, staff has recommended conditions that the paved multi-use path be 12 foot with certain illumination, which I think is reasonable, and also that the applicant correct the code compliance issues that they noted. And I think that that's a really reasonable condition to put, so that they will be following the design standards that we have set out in our code, that are meant to uphold the concerns about safety, the concerns about traffic, and the concerns laid out in our future land use map. This is kind of same as others have said, but students can and will live everywhere. I don't live in a subdivision. I live in an RS5 neighborhood, which is single family detached, but with some random apartment buildings from 50 years ago. I can tell you that students are living in the detached single family houses, and low income people are living in the apartments. Low income people are living in the multifamily housing. Now, again, you know, that's old. It's not going to be exactly like this, but students are living in the new single family houses. They will live anywhere. You cannot stop them from living places where they want to live. And also, I would just like to state that renters are not bad. I was a tenant myself up until 2021 for my whole adult life. And I think that renter phobia is not good for a community where half of us are tenants. I'm not someone who considers these hearings to be about taking a straw poll of how many people say they want it and how many people say they don't. I do want to note that we heard more comments in favor of this redevelopment than I think we have in a long time. And we received an additional 6 of those by email. We heard from someone today say, I would like to live here. I would like to live here. And that woman, as far as I can tell, I don't mean to make assumptions about you, Ms. Todd, did not appear to be an undergraduate student. In our emails, we also received comments from people who do not seem to be undergraduate students or the parents of an undergraduate student. They are people in our community who want to be your neighbors, and cannot as it currently stands. The one thing about code compliance that I am kind of sticky on, but not enough to cause a whole hullabaloo about, is that a children's play area is required to be built. I think that I'm generally, I think it's weird. I think it's a weird requirement, especially when you're that close to a children's play area that already exists. But as been noted, there's more parking spaces than the allowable max, and I think that it's reasonable to require them to comply with that code issue as a condition of approval. And so, you know, take away some parking spaces, add a children's play area, that could be fine. But I think that if it came down to it, a children's play area would just be something that would be an extra expense and not much benefit to any children. And the last thing I want to say is I don't really care about spot zoning concerns here. Given that this is a binding site plan, there's not going to be a bunch of condos on that one parcel. It's a driveway, and I don't see how that disrupts things a whole heck of a lot more. given the general compliance we have, the general compliance we have with the future land use maps. I think it's a good idea.
Alex?
I'll just hit a few things and stay away from what we have talked about. We've hit most of everything, but a couple of things. Mentioning the number of parking spaces and means it's not walkable or not going to be walkable. Well, I'll walk anywhere I can, and I own 2 cars in my family. So it's not an issue. I don't believe that you own a car and then you're not a walking person. People on 5 Points do it all the time. If I lived there, I would walk to Kroger, I would walk to restaurants, I would do all that and leave my car in one of the parking spaces. So I think that's irrelevant. The other thing, from the last time it was brought up and including now, it's isolated. It is not out in front of the neighborhood. It is not an eyesore. It's buffered everywhere. And the other thing is, when I look at it on a map, when I look at it from different points of view, this property feels more like a Barnett Shoals corridor property and less like a Green Acres property. Now, that's my opinion, but that is my opinion. It backs up to all of these gas stations and all. And so I've always seen that property as more that than the neighborhood. So it's going to feel more like that after it's built. Honestly, this is not easily affordable student housing either per bedroom. This is not cheap student. If parents want to buy this for their students this far away from the university, I know they do buy things that high. I have sold a 7-figure house to someone who does that, but that is extremely rare. And if it does, again, it fills up with students. Well, like Joey said, and like we've said, they're all over, students are a big part of this. We're glad to take their money, but we just don't want to live next to us. Well, I don't always appreciate that type of look to it. And it's funny you mentioned, I believe it's Micah's Creek, because I was thinking that very same development, how it could actually have come in here possibly and all the trouble it would have had to do. But in putting a neighborhood like that right here, which is affordable. So those are just a couple of the comments that I wanted to, yeah, I'm good with that.
Joey next, and then Sarah.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve with the 2 staff conditions.
Second.
Motion by Joey to approve with the 2 staff conditions, and second by Sarah Gehring. Any further discussion of the motion?
Sorry, not the motion. I had one other thing I wanted to add. That Alex's comment brought up, which was that these are too expensive to be student housing. Whenever we're talking about making, I said you can't stop students from living anywhere, but I was wrong. The only way you can stop a lot of students from moving in is by making housing for rich people. Like the more expensive you make it, the fewer students you have, but the fewer, normal working class people you have too. That's all.
Sarah.
I think I just add, I really appreciate this discussion, and it kind of, especially Joey, the comments you made, and Matt, that it brought me back to kind of what I came into this meeting thinking, which is that this is 4.8 acres of land adjacent to a corridor, kind of only by technicality, not on the corridor. And, when I think of some different scenario, it just seems to me that piece of land that has so much sort of infrastructure to support it, that would literally promote people who live here, walking across the street and using all of what is going to be there. It seems irresponsible to not put some density there. And the idea of whether we want to call this missing middle housing or not, 24 is that our number? 24 is the number of units? Do I have that right? 20 units. Not that big a deal to me. And when I think about, like, when I've daydreamed about, like, oh, maybe you could do like 3 little, 5 cottage courts in there, or something interesting. It seems irresponsible to me to not we leave 28 seems like a reasonable number to me, and I think whoever made the point that it's really buffered sort of visually, is, I think it makes less of a sort of disturbance or I don't know how much that was really a concern, but anyway, I appreciate everybody's comments and yeah, I'll just leave it with that.
Any more discussion before we vote? All right, so we have a motion to approve with the conditions identified in the staff report. Roll call.
Pitman,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Gehring,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sams,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great, we've been going for nearly 2 hours and a bunch of people are about to stand up. We take a 5-minute break and we will resume at exactly 8 o'clock.
Unusual.
We are. We're on. Yeah, they're not there.
Yeah, that's a good.
You can't say.
Start. Alex.
Just missing out.
Something less than yours. Fraternity.
I mean, not a close one.
So Brett.
Oh, good.
Still there.
Yeah, he's one of us.
Up where we left off with item 2 on the new business section of the agenda is 141 Wilkerson Street, special use permit 24-02-0210. And before we get to the staff report, I just have a disclosure to make, which is that I own a house on Wilkerson Street, 180 Wilkerson's across the street and a couple doors down. The applicant incorrectly describes it as decrepit and unoccupied. Fact of the matter is, it is occupied and I think in fairly nice condition. Anyway, I've discussed this with Mr. Lonnie and we're both of the opinion that this doesn't provide a basis for me to recuse because I don't see how this special use permit affects the market value of my property on the same.
Your tenants are happy and they're a nice couple, by the way.
But just wanted to put that on the record. And so with that said, we'll start with the staff report.
Shorter walk for me today. All right, this is 141 Wilkerson Street, special use permit for a chapter house, fraternity chapter house. So the request is to take a single family residence in CD zoning and turn it into a fraternity chapter house. There is no required parking in the CD zone, and there is an on-site access for gravel parking. Part of the proposal would also be to add a handicap spot. There would be also removal of a house in the rear. Currently, there are 2 single-family homes and 2 outbuildings. The rear single-family home would be removed, and as would the 2 other outbuildings. The addition that would be put in its place behind the front house would be an event space. And as of, well, not as of now, part of this request is that there would be no residence as a part of this. So the students or the fraternity have purchased the 3 or 4 properties on either side of this property. And so that's what they'll be using, or obviously wherever else they may choose to live. But this will have no residential aspect to it. So as you can see, this is the property. We are not going to point out Matt's property.
It's got bright shiny.
I can see it from the satellite image. And as you can see to the up and down the street, it is single family residences. This is an outdated site aerial view. To the left of this property is a parking deck, which is semi-public, semi-private. To the right, you have the river. In terms of the zoning, it would just be commercial downtown, river district with a special use on it. And there would be no change to the future land use, so it would remain as that downtown land use. This is a picture of the property currently. As is proposed, this is what would stay. Everything that is being proposed would be behind this. Not bad. And then this would be the site plan for it. One thing that is interesting to note is that the sewer line goes directly under the current house. Public Utilities has indicated that that is a location they're looking to move in the future, that line. Because as it currently stands, if that anything goes on with that pipe, the house itself is gonna be in for a rough time in terms of fixing it. And then this is what the event space would be behind that house. It'd be a breezeway connecting it with a handicap spot. It would have basically everything that would accommodate the chapter meetings and events that they'd like to put on. So for staff recommendation, it is compatible to 2023 comprehensive plan. It does utilize an in-zone or infill location. It does preserve and reuse the house at the front of the property, so it keeps that historic character of Wilkerson Street. And then arguably most importantly, it removes the significant structure from the environmentally sensitive area. What is being proposed here is completely outside of the floodplain and the riparian buffer. And so by removing that second structure, we're actually making the environmental area a little bit nicer, I guess. So that being said, it is compatible to future land use, the zoning, and the ordinance. Like I said before, the fraternity does own the surrounding residences, barring Commissioner Hill's spot. Paul, sorry, I'm sorry. Paul, I know, right? What a night. And then also with the proximity to the downtown and UGA area, there's plenty of opportunities for the students to park and get around without having to worry about clogging up Wilkerson Street. And for those reasons, we are recommending approval. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Max. We'll now hear from the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Brett Thurman with Armitrout Matheny Thurman, 330 Research Drive, Athens, Georgia, and I represent the fraternity in this action. So we've been here before. Started out 3 years ago looking for some temporary housing, which you guys recommended approval for that after we worked out some issues with being permanent or temporary special use. That ran into a lot of neighborhood opposition. But at the end of the day, the neighborhood decided that they felt some sympathy to the fraternity because they allowed them to live in that house and use that house as their chapter house on that 1 year temporary basis, provided they met certain conditions. And as far as I know, they met all those conditions. There was no one unhappy with that whole situation during the time that they were there. Once we found out that we weren't going to be able to make anything permanent there, we attempted to look at other properties around. I've made this case before to this body and with the mayor and commission that there's only certain places for fraternities to go in this town. It's Millage Avenue, it's Lumpkin Street, and they're downtown. There's one outside of those three areas. And it backs up off Barnett Shoals, and to get there, you've got to go way around and about. There was one out on Macon Highway where the Oak House Gin Distillery is located now. And that was a fraternity, and they shut down and moved off and essentially left campus. So there are only these spots for fraternities to really find a place for a home. And the fraternity felt so strongly about this property that they bought it. So we're coming forward as an owner, not as a prospective owner for these parcels. We'll have people living down there, but they're on separate parcels around this one parcel. This parcel will act as a chapter house. We've got no bedrooms planned to be placed in the existing house. That will be renovated for small group space. We've moved the chapter house forward some. We'd love to be closer to the river, but we have the 100-year floodplain we're dealing with, plus the 100-foot buffer. The house that's back there right now that we want to demolish is is in the 100-foot buffer. So that's their take there was that we are improving that, and that is true. We're moving that house. It's in the buffer and some significant, not significant, but some other concrete walks and flumes and other things that are back there as well in the buffer. So that's going back to a natural state. You know, again, we're downtown. There's parking everywhere around this site. There's UGA parking that's walkable distance for the students who may come here, may choose to be closer to the fraternity house, and they could pick to choose to park in a university lot that's within walkable distance of the house. The fraternity brothers who live in around the house, they all have their own parking spots on those other properties. Parking decks all up and down East Broad, behind and back around Chicopee. One of those university lots is actually listed as a commuter lot for students. So we feel like the location is a great spot for us. We feel like it's isolated enough that we won't get any complaints with any issues related to noise. And we feel like that the use here is a great adaptation because we're not coming down here and tearing down a bunch of these houses to build something big. And I was part of a group that looked at this property several years ago, and at that time, it was for a 100-foot tall housing complex to be put on this property. So I think this is a much lower impact use that will be a benefit greatly for the fraternity and also for Athens-Clarke County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This is part of it. Hey, Max, we got still sharing.
It's taking this.
Good afternoon, evening. Last time I was here, I was not a member of the Housing Corporation that owns the property. Today, I'm Alan Cleveland. I live on Westlake. I'm now the president of that Housing Corporation that owns the property. We're hoping the third time's a charm here in this property. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Wilkerson Street. Commissioner Hall, I'm sure, knows a lot about it. I lived on Wilkerson in 1986, my last year in school. At that time, it was all rental property, and Mingledorf's owned most of that street at that time. There are only what's left on Wilkerson that's habitable are 7 properties, and we bought 6 of them. So Commissioner Hall's property and our properties are there. There's one other building next to his that's not habitable, and there's one that was torn down this past summer. This property is literally the whole of a donut of commercial property, rental property, government property, and the river and university property. It was hard for us to find something that would agree with the use and the zoning that wasn't touching a residential area, and this is it. This is the last parcel in downtown, other than buying a building downtown, that we could find to make our home. We want this to be our forever home. I'm very happy that it's a historical area. We all know, think of Pottery Town, and we know there was a pottery there. The pottery was gone by 1913, 1920s. Most of these buildings were built in the late 20s, in the 30s and 40s. So I think what people think of as Pottery Town as a neighborhood, the historical aspect of that is not the pottery, which has been gone for over 100 years. It's these houses. And we're preserving most of the street with our purchase. And we want to keep that historical nature. The back house that we're taking down was in the buffer, and we needed a space for an assembly room. We're going to keep the front house, and we're going to fix it up. And I brought some things for you guys, just some historical maps that if you want a copy, I can share with you. And I also brought a photograph. It's kind of just a conceptual idea of what we envision the street, our side of the street, to look like. And I'm happy to pass those out if you need those. There's 7 public parking lots within 1,500 feet. So we're not too concerned about parking. There's lots of parking on the property. We've been talking with Mr. Weaver about using his lot for Monday nights, for overflow, for chapter meetings. Most of our guys live in the downtown corridor, and the guys that don't are the freshmen on campus, and they'll have plenty of parking and ability to get there. And that's all I have. Thank you. Alan Cleveland.
Good to be with you again. My name is Bill Crane. I live at 317 North Clarendon Avenue in Scottsdale, Georgia, but I've owned rental property, Phi Kappa Tau property in Athens since I graduated in 1984. In 3 days, our fraternity here in Athens turned 75 years old. Hopefully this will be our 7th and final home. I think some of you who we've spoken with before understand and believe or have seen that we've become parts of the community, not just another fraternity house on the street. So, and I hope, Mr. Hall, a year from now, you'll be able to vouch. We intend to be good neighbors. We're not even on the street yet. All of the properties are leased, but we've already made commitments to the Firefly Trail Incorporated to be a good steward there and to have several of our undergraduates trained as park docents, that they have a program, a park ambassador program in Athens-Clarke County. Dexter Weaver, who you're about to hear from him in a moment, is our adjacent property owner, and he's been on the street running the automatic for 39 years. I visited with Mr. Weaver several weeks ago. We've gotten to know each other. If you don't know this about him, he started his business catering and cooking from his home for the Lambda Chi fraternity. Then later the Theta Chi Alpha sorority for 14 years. But as he was catching me up on his background, you might be interested to know that he has loyal customers who keep coming back around. And one of those first Lambda Chi customers was a young man I think y'all have heard of, who's dropped in a couple times recently, named Governor Brian Kemp. So we intend to be the kind of residential neighbors that will help Mr. Hall's property appreciate, and perhaps at a later point in time, if Landmark will sell them, buy those vacant homes that are on either side of you, or the one on Pottery Street. We also intend to put a permanent historic marker to the Pottery Town neighborhood, and we'd like to see some sort of designation for the automatic and Dexter Weaver on that footbridge that crosses over to Chicopee. So we're in this for the long haul. We're committed. I hope that you've had the opportunity to talk to some of the neighbors who objected to us the last time, to see that we honored every commitment we made to this board as well as the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Mr. Weaver has some thoughts.
My name is Dexter Weaver. I'm the owner.
Procedurally, I think we're done with the applicant's presentation, and so I'll open it up to members of the public who wish to speak in support of this proposal, and each individual has 3 minutes. So with that said, we'll welcome to the podium.
I'm Dexter Weaver, owner of Weaver D's Fine Foods. I'm excited for the fraternity being our neighbors. I'm already believing it. And I'm just real excited about it. I've catered for their fraternity. I've been on the fraternity and sorority circuit for years and years. And seems like it keeps on going. And I'm happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? All right, is there any member of the public here to speak in opposition to the proposal? All right, seeing none, we will bring the discussion behind the rail. Someone want to start us off, Joey?
I'll start off. This is the third time we've heard from Phi Kappa Tau, and I'm open for discussion, but with what we've had and no one speaking against, I want us to start off with a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion to approve from Joey and second from Alice. Any discussion of the motion?
I just want to say, when I first got my packet and I opened this up, I was like, oh, great, there goes Pottery Town. And I was so happy to see this solution. So yeah, just bravo, guys. Like really, it's a really cool solution, so.
Sarah, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, sure.
Knitting.
I was just knitting, but I was thinking of some things. I'll have to keep it lower. Reduce confusion. I am glad to see that this fraternity has finally found a neighborhood that is welcoming it. I think it should have happened sooner, but I commend their tenacity, and hopefully there's no one hiding in the woodwork. I can't imagine where they would even come from to complain about this. But this seems like a great seems like a great idea, and I hope that the Mayor and Commission supports it.
Any further discussion? Well, let's vote.
Motion to approve. Kinman,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Gehring,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sam's,
Yes.
Tucker. Yes. Motion passes 6-0.
They're like, I can't even have a thing.
Thank you.
I would like one of the maps and.
Sure, yeah, here, let me. I'll leave this.
Yeah.
A whole.
Can't resist the. There we go. Final.
Somebody wrote.
Yeah, I was like.
Oh, really?
Found it online, it's pretty.
I thought, I would work, put something on the record, never know.
Yeah, I'll send it.
Imagine.
Send all the movies.
Literally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share mine. So, yeah.
You know, like, when you would share for people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what they're.
I'd love to see that dissertation.
I'm gonna send you snaps.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And I feel like, that's like really special.
Actually, that was like.
All right, that brings us to item 3 on the new business section of the agenda, 180 Moss Road, zoning item 2024-02-0209.
All righty, let's get going here. This one is a relatively straightforward request. It is a rezone from AR to CR, which stands for our agricultural residential zone to our commercial rural zone, both of which would be located in our quote green belt and our very low density development zones. The proposal is for a gas station / convenience store. There would be 3 total tenant spaces in that convenience store. So unlike some of them where it's just the one store, this one would have up to 3 spaces for individual stores, all within the same building. This is the lot in question. It is out on where Moss Road hits Athena and Spring Valley. So Spring Valley right here, Moss Road coming off to the right, and then Athena on the left. We have the mobile home park down here, and then we have a residential subdivision down here. The lot you can see itself is undeveloped, largely wooded. Is sitting on the border of our quote green belt. So we have our rural future land use that's comes along Spring Valley Road there. And then on the other side, we have our employment center future land use, which is an extension of the Athena Industrial Park. And we've seen some cases about Olympic Drive and those kinds of things. This is an extension of that future land use that comes out to here. So we don't require this. This proposal does not require a change to the future land use. Commercial rural is the only zone, the only commercial zone that has been deemed to be compatible with the rural future land use. It is intended for very low intensity commercial uses in an area that we otherwise expect to be either very low residential or ag uses and those kinds of things. So it does require a change to the zoning map. It's from AR on the left, which you could see. Most of the properties surrounding it are also AR. You have EI on the opposite side of Spring Valley, and then you have some RS land south. It would change over to CR. We deem it to be compatible with the zoning map because it's at a corner. It's at an intersection. So it's not, we don't consider it to be a spot zone. Corners and intersections are often locations for commercial uses. This is the non-binding site plan that is being proposed here. We have the gas station canopy here. We have Spring Valley Road. We have the Firefly Trail, which is due to be constructed here, I think this year, if all goes according to plan. We have Moss Road, so we have entrances to both Moss and Spring Valley. Then we have the 3 tenant spaces right here, and some parking, stormwater, and the rest of the site is left undisturbed. Staff recommendation in the report suggests that it is partially compatible with our 2023 comprehensive plan. It does preserve the green belt by staying within the rural future land use. But it does not, the non-binding design does not really integrate very well with the Firefly Trail access or interface very well with the trail, which is why we've recommended some conditions in your staff report to help make sure that if this were approved, it would be more compatible there with the considerable public investment that we're making in the Firefly Trail. We want everything that gets developed along there to complement the trail, and something that's as auto-oriented as a gas station may not necessarily be the best complement, but there are ways that can be designed that would offer, the convenience store services to users of the trail. It is compatible with the future land use map, the zoning map, and the zoning ordinance. This is a non-binding plan, so we just reviewed it for general compliance with the code. We didn't find any major issues. Leisure Services is in charge, and the SPLOST office are in charge of developing the trail. And if this gets approved and submitted for plans review, that's when Leisure Services is going to work with the applicant to make sure that the site development is coordinated with trail construction. So that's going to be taken care of at a future date. So all that to say, we're recommending approval with conditions. The conditions are there to help the design, whatever gets built there, complement the trail. We think that's really important, but otherwise we deem it to be a compatible use of the land. And let's see. Those conditions are as follows. No automobile parking spaces shall be placed between the building and the Firefly Trail. That's what the current plan shows. We think that putting cars in between trail users and the building that they might want to access, to get a Gatorade or whatever, flies in the face of complementing the trail. So shifting those parking spaces around. And then also we require bike parking with all of our commercial developments, and we would condition that bike parking be located in a place that maximizes its utility to trail users. So those are the two conditions. We're recommending approval with conditions, and that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Steve. So at this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Frank Pitman with Pitman Agrarian Engineering, representing the property owner. As Stephen mentioned, 180 Moss Road is at the northeast intersection of Moss Road and Spring Valley Road. It's even though it is AR today, it really has no viable use as an agricultural use or really even a residential use on that corner. It's right across the road from industrial. More and more industrial is coming out there. Meisner's coming with 1,800 jobs just down the road. And so this is not only a benefit, I think, for the Firefly, but it's also a benefit for all the people that are working out there to be able to go to the store and buy snacks or whatever they want. We are asking for the lowest intensity commercial zoning so that it does complement the existing green belt. As Stephen mentions, this does fit in the future land use for this area. We are adjacent to the Firefly Trail, which will allow a nice pit stop for people that are coming from Athens going to Winterville. The mention about the comp plan, I mentioned, Stephen mentioned, the staff agrees with us on that. Staff recommended approval with two conditions that I guess I'm good with. The condition about parking adjacent to the Firefly Trail almost seems backwards to me. When we did in a former life, I did the racetrack on Lexington Road right at the loop, and we were required to put parking adjacent to the trail there. So, we set this up thinking that actually was a benefit for the trail so that people were stopping in to put the bike in the back of the truck or whatever. They don't have to go to the other side of the building to do so. We don't necessarily have a problem changing that, but I guess I would ask this body to think about what we're really asking there and are we really making it worse for the trail than better? The other condition we're fine with. I guess that's that's my presentation. We would ask for you guys' approval tonight or recommendation for approval. And I'll just reserve any time for any opposition that I need to speak on. Thank you.
Mr. Greer, at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this?
Oh, favor.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this?
Yes. Okay. How do we get this thing to go backwards?
I think you can ask staff to, I'll change the slide to figure it out.
Okay. You see that little square there?
You identify yourself.
Oh, James Minor, 210 Ponderosa. I own this land that's, okay, you see that, the red cutout section of the 2.5 acres, I guess it is. That's where the gas station would go. All that green stuff around it and all that land there is mine. Okay? Basically, I bought that land to be, you know, an ag situation. You know, I have a conservation tax break on it, you know. I don't plan to build anything there. Well, maybe a barn, maybe whatever. It was farm for years, okay? It's not farm right this second. You know, basically it's like you're putting a gas station in my backyard. You know, it's a high impact corner. It's like, you know, I'm left with bright lights and noise and crime and then you forced me to do the Firefly Trail thing. You came in there, you mandatory that I sell some land, you know. I went along with it, you know. I don't know what kind of impact that's gonna be, but that's not an impact. It's like this gas station situation. And I really oppose this, you know what I mean? I think you're infringing on my rights as my property rights by putting some gas station there. You know, I just don't think it's right, you know? I don't know what the value of my land's gonna be anymore. I don't know. You know what I mean? The land just keeps on going downhill. You know, they paid $171,000 for that little 2.5 acres. You know what I mean? My value of my land is going down and down. Whoever thought you'd buy land and go backwards? This, I don't know what it's gonna do, what kind of impact it's gonna be. What kind of noise, what kind of lights, what kind of traffic. So I bitterly oppose it. It's infringing on my rights as a landowner. I don't know what else to say. Guess that's all I gotta say, but.
Thank you, Mr. Minor.
Okay.
Is there any other member of the public in opposition? Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Star Scott. I am a scientist and sustainability professional. I live off of Moss Road on Underwood Drive, and I've lived there for 22 years. I'm also a taxpaying citizen of Athens-Clarke County. So I'm asking for this rezoning to be denied for the following reasons. So this rezone will dramatically hurt the property values of the homes in the area, homes of tax-paying citizens and active members of our community, citizens who should be prioritized over private business interests. So the original zoning for this area was accurate and thorough and is all that remains of a very fine line between our neighborhoods, our homes, and the ever-growing industry and commercial presence that is on the opposite side of this. Let's see, this industry presence has more than quadrupled over the past 2 decades. This area used to be more rural and forested, and over the past 5 years alone, has had literally hundreds of acres clear cut. This development has already impacted our air quality, increased our light pollution, and has had significant impact on the wildlife and healthy ecosystems in our area. But gratefully, we've had the zoning boundary to at least keep these impacts from encroaching further. So gas stations pose significant hazards to neighbors, especially children. They drive myriad environmental problems from ground level ozone caused by gasoline vapors, groundwater hazards, and other exposure hazards. There are well-documented and studied health concerns for those living close to gas pumps. I'm happy to provide any peer-reviewed published journals to support what I'm telling you in this statement. There are well-documented and studied health concerns for those living close to gas pumps. A study led by environmental health scientists at Columbia University examined the release of vapors from gas station vent pipes and found emissions were 10 times higher than estimates used in the setback regulations, determining how close residential areas can be to these facilities. So this is proven. There are multiple studies that show that. The clear cutting that's already taken place in this area of the beautiful, vital hardwood, healthy hardwood and mixed forests has resulted in unprecedented flooding in my neighborhood, the likes of which we have never seen in 22 years. The beautiful forest that currently resides at the site in question provides an important buffer between the industrial and commercial and residential areas and should remain intact. So I'm asking that you please honor the original zoning of this site and prioritize the health and well-being of citizens and residents in our community, as well as our properties. So this area has grown to be a primarily industrial area for Athens-Clarke County, and we're really begging you to protect what is left of the fine line between this residential and commercial area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to this?
Appreciate your time. I'm Trey Williams. I live off Moss Road at Winterwood. The application report is inaccurate on several key points. It states that the proposed rezoning will not negatively impact surrounding property values, and there's vast amounts of research demonstrating otherwise. Gas stations in residential areas in the southeast are well documented to lower property values. Multiple studies have demonstrated a correlation between residential sales of alcohol and an increase in crime. Additionally, the presence of convenience store alone is a correlation of higher crime rates in the residential area. It states, the application report states that the traffic pattern will not be negatively impacted. Yet there are many studies that demonstrate the negative impact of gas stations near a residential area, including traffic disruptions, increased accidents, and environmental degradation. And if you're gonna have 1,800 workers crossing in and out where people are trying to enjoy the Firefly Trail, which I'm all about, that seems pretty dangerous because it already backs up there in the morning and the afternoon right there at that intersection. The application report is also inaccurate that it states the gas station will be needed to provide for the current and incoming industries in the area, and as well as for the Firefly Trail. There are 2 gas stations in close proximity to this site, the Circle K on 29, 2.3 miles from the site, and the Golden Pantry in Winterville, only 1.6 miles from the site, which is already located on the Firefly Trail and has a plethora of Gatorade and snacks for everyone. Please honor the original zoning of this site and prioritize the health and well-being of the citizens and residents of our community, as well as our properties. This area has grown to become a primary industrial area for the Athens-Clarke County, and we are begging you to protect what is left of this fine line between residential and industrial uses in this area. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Is there any other member of the audience wishing to comment on it? Good job.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Moody Bailey, and I'm a resident at 176 Glendale Heights. I stand in strong opposition to this rezoning at the property of 180 Moss Road, which is actually in a residential area. Currently, 180 Moss Road is listed as agricultural property with the intent of the owner to turn it into commercial property by building a gas station with a convenience store and additional retail stores. As this rezoning proposal state on the table, residents have great concern as to why this development will not serve in the best interest of those living within the proximity of this gas station. Currently, there are over 10 gas stations within a 4-mile radius of the property at 180 Moss Road, which simplifies why this gas station is not wanted, warranted, or welcome in our residential area. Not only is there no need for another gas station, but bringing this one to this specific residential property location is just not needed. And no, I'm not seeking answers to whether or not this will be harmonious to the area on the Athena Drive. I'm actually asking, is this going to be harmonious to the residents that live off of Spring Valley Road that actually connects to Moss Road? There are various concerns, many of those which we have been asking over and over. The first one we might ask, is this going to be a gas station that's going to heavily populate the traffic? As we're all familiar, anytime there's going to be a gas station, there's going to be an increase in traffic. Also, there's another concern. That concern is whether or not this is going to be non-disturbing. We already know this is actually going to be a cause of bringing in more lighting. Yes, an increase in traffic, as mentioned, and we're also trying our best to figure out how is this going to be a safer environment with this increase in traffic. Last but not least, there's a question that's posed, and it's that question of, is this going to be a hazardous situation by bringing in a gas station? I think that one is very, very clear. With any gas station coming into a residential area, there's going to be a great concern. And that concern is, yes, there are potentials of a possible leak with these underground tanks. And there's also the possibility of there being spills with the filling of these tanks. As of right now, I ask that you take into great consideration that this gas station actually lies so very close in the proximity of the Spring Valley Mobile Home Park. And it's in very close proximity of the Glendale Heights residents and other residents. I will strongly urge you to consider this. If you yourself went and purchased your home and you actually had one of the factors on the table of whether or not a gas station would be coming up in your residence very soon, I don't think you would have actually purchased your property. In fact, you would have made a decision to go elsewhere. Again, thank you for your time.
Is there another member of the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal?
Good evening. My name is Angela Green, and I live at 269 Taylor Lane in the Thomas Farm subdivision, which is off of Spring Valley Road. I live less than a half a mile from the property that we're talking about tonight. And as we've discussed, this is a residential area that abuts an industrial area. And that property is the buffer between industry and those of us who live there. This once was an agricultural area. It's hard to call it that anymore. It's really a suburb of Athens, I think. At least that's what it feels like to me. This is the Thomas Farm subdivision is directly across the street from the new Meisner facility, where there will be 1,800 employees at some point in the future. I and my neighbors were here at this meeting trying to keep that rezoning from happening a couple of years ago. We lost that battle. We accept it. We think that Meisner is making an effort to be a good neighbor, and we appreciate that. Meisner has planned for their main entrance to be on Athena rather than Spring Valley to keep as much traffic off of Spring Valley as possible. We appreciate that. We appreciate the planning department helping with that. I do want to clarify something in the report. It makes reference to the intersection of Moss Road and Athena and Spring Valley as being a busy intersection. At least I believe I've read that in the report. It is not currently a busy intersection. I go through there all different times of day, and there's a four-way stop there, and there might be one car ahead of you in the four-way stop. Bringing this convenience store there will make it a busy intersection. You'll take that character that's still marginally rural-ish and change it dramatically by putting a convenience store there. Has been previously mentioned, there are many options for gas station convenience stores within easy access of this area. Up on Route 29, there's fast food, there's everything that an employee could possibly want. So if Meisner, and there's also the studios, Athena Studios on Athena Drive as well. Those employees, my goal is for them to not head in the direction of this intersection, but to head in the other direction towards 29 to seek services. And putting this convenience store there is going to change that dynamic, and it's unnecessary because there are other options available. I'm really, in reading the report, it also made it sound like that somehow that this convenience store was going to provide a service that the community needs. I drove here tonight. It takes 10 minutes to get to downtown Athens from where I live in Thomas Farm. We're not a community in need of services. So why in the world this needs to be there? Again, I don't quite understand. And I'm also, the Firefly Trail is a really important thing that's happening in this community. And I think there's been reference made that, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have, a place to get a soda along the way? Well, there's the racetrack on Lexington. You can park there, you can get a soda or whatever you need. And I believe I read that there's a convenience store approved also for Indian Hills. So I think they're.
Ms. Green.
Okay, and thank you very much.
May I speak?
Yes.
My name is Pat Culpepper, and this is the first time I've sat through one of your meetings, and I really appreciate how hard you guys work and the time that it takes. So thank you for that. My name is Pat Culpepper, and I live at 127 Gretchen Lane, which is also in the Thomas Farms neighborhood. I know Angela, I've met her walking in the neighborhood. So Thomas Farms is just north of this property on Spring Valley. So I graduated from UGA in 1983 and I moved to Atlanta. That's where I've been for 40 years and recently returned to the Athens area. Not yet retired, but I've got some family here, so I wanted to get back in the area, and I found a house in Thomas Farms. And, as we've talked about, there's a housing shortage and all of that. So I was really happy to find this nice house and in Thomas Farms. It's a nice, it's a sweet neighborhood. It's quiet. It's a very diverse neighborhood. And it's just really a gem. And my understanding at the time was, these things can always change, but it's on, yes, there's industry across Spring Valley, but that's kind of the line, as others have talked about. And I hope that we will maintain that boundary. And I'm looking forward to the impending development of the Firefly Trail adjacent to our neighborhood. That's going to provide us pedestrian and biking access to Winterville and Athens. Thomas Farm sits right on the dividing line between residential, agricultural zoning, and industry, as we already talked about, and the commercial corridor over on 29, which is just 3 minutes away. On 29, you can find all the gas stations, convenience stores, Kroger, fast food, and more. To echo what Angela said and others, I don't think there's a need for this. I don't think it's a fit. And I respectfully ask that you deny this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Culpepper. Is there any other member of the public who can speak in opposition to this proposal?
Again, I really appreciate you as public servants at 10 minutes to 9. So you'd expect Dr. Garland to get up here as a retired ag research scientist that's being close to my heart.
I'm sorry, can you just introduce yourself?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Mike Garland, residing at 266 Taylor Lane in Thomas Farms, Winter Village Rest. So I've never been opposed to well-planned, responsible business development, and I thank you guys for that. But I have to stand and oppose the rezoning of 180 Moss Road from AR to CR. And I'll just cut through everything because you've already had all the technological things which you would expect a research scientist to talk about, but I'll just summarize. It's just unnecessary, this new facility with everything that is in our existing neighborhood. The potential disruptions of local traffic flow and firefly, that's been one of the big obstacles that I see here from staff. But I think I'll just call them unintended consequences of an isolated business on the health of our community and the value of our homes. And so in summary, those almost 3 acres of woodland habitat would be gone. And it's just not consistent with the Firefly Trail. And for us at Thomas Farms, and one thing that hasn't been brought up, we were designated a conservation subdivision as a main part of this green space. And so we do respect the buffer, and we think it's incredibly important. And for that reason, we oppose this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Crystal Barber. I live at 140 Moss Road, and I also own 130 Moss Road. When we're looking at that picture, the gentleman over there owns the wooded area. What's not up to date is we own two, so on the right-hand side where there's just flat, I have 2 houses there. I specifically moved to Athens to take a job with Athens-Clarke County. And when I did that, one of my dreams was to have a farm. So we have a 17-acre farm. Right now we have quail and chickens. The goal is to be hydroponic. And to have some cows and sheep, which are hopefully end of this year into next year. So there's 2 houses there. There's greenhouses that you don't see on this. So it is definitely getting some agricultural use. And then also because I am with the county, part of a study they did for some big data was Moss Road is actually the #1 offender of 25-mile-an-hour zone. So people speeding in 25-mile-an-hour zones. It was the #1 on the big data. So that was part of their priority streets that they were looking at. Part of that was because of the Olympic Drive snafu with the, this, what is that, sinkhole? And they have fixed that, but it is a heavily driven road, not to get to homes because it's a pass-through road. No one actually lives there except for like 3 houses, and I own 2 of them. So it's not a very driven road from people that live on Moss Road. That's the subdivision and the trailer park get there a lot, but there's only very few houses, but there isn't much green area. And while I know that, obviously everybody wants another building, it's just really, I feel again, unnecessary. There's several gas stations. There's a dollar store that could help the greenway. There's several other properties that are already zoned for commercial use that I don't know why they couldn't just pick one of those and use instead of having to take one of the few green places, knock all the trees down, and build another building. So I do appreciate your time and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Is there any other member of the public here to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name's Cindy Pace. I live at 130 Moss Road. I moved down here from Ohio after spending almost 69 years in Ohio. I moved down here 2 years ago, and I'm a farmer from Ohio. And that's fantastic ground. It grows good stuff. And I just hate to see them stick a gas station on a farm. It just doesn't make much sense. Why to have an agricultural piece of property turned to commercial when you need agriculture in this state? Your green space is not your agricultural space. So I think you need to look and consider how much green space you have to agricultural space in the county and take that into consideration. Because us farmers are the ones that feed everybody, and we need that ground to do that. And a gas station just is not even feasible on an agricultural piece of property. Thank you very much.
Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Steve Bryant and I live at 101 Woodlake. And I agree with most of what's been said. I will just say that you guys do kind of have a little bit of precedence of maybe not allowing a project to go forward in preparation for a large, improvement project, because I remember that there was a proposed project off of North Ave that received the federal grant. And so you guys pushed back a little bit on that proposed project that had similar gas station component to it. So even though the Firefly Trail isn't there now, it should be there hopefully soon. So I don't think a gas station complements it very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Red. Is there anyone else in opposition? All right, we will bring it back behind the rail. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, the applicant.
I'll try to touch on a couple things that I heard, maybe clear something up. There's comments about lights. We hear that a lot on rezones, and as you all know, Athens-Clarke County has some very stringent lighting requirements. Some of the older developments aren't following them because they came before lighting code, but new developments have specific lighting code to keep lights from polluting on other people's property and into the sky. Noise, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yes, crime happens. Crime happens a lot of places. That is usually a reflection of an area and not necessarily a business. I think that to tell somebody that their business is attracts crime is not fair to anybody. I don't know that, the Golden Pantry in Winterville was mentioned being down the road. I don't know that I've ever heard of a crime occurring down there. It's, good business is not going to attract crime. There was a comment about, somebody said there's a lot of traffic and somebody said there's no traffic. I've worked on a lot of projects in this industrial area over the years. There's a lot of traffic that leaves Athena to this roadway to go either to Winterville or East Athens. So there is traffic. Convenience stores don't typically attract new traffic. They do have traffic counts, but it is pass by traffic. It is not a destination type business. There was a comment about flooding in the neighborhood. As you all know, we're required to do very stringent stormwater management on projects these days. There was a comment of the last person that said we're turning agricultural property into commercial, but this is not agricultural property today. It is zoned agricultural residential, but it is a wooded tract. It is not used for agriculture and hasn't been in obviously a long, long time. So with that, again, I'd be open for any questions and I would ask for y'all's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
Just to start us off, I think after giving this a lot of thought, for me, I don't want to see this happen here. I think if we're going to pierce our green belt, it's not with a gas station. I know that we are going to be starting in the next several years talking about how to develop adjacent to the Firefly Trail. And there are a lot of CR uses that I think would be compatible and nice adjacent to the Firefly Trail. And it's kind of interesting looking at the CR use table. Gas station is the one that I don't want to see happen. It is interesting to see how many gas stations are around here. I don't know. Yeah, it just seems to me, it feels irresponsible to put a gas station area that has lots of gas stations and to do a greenfield gas station development in our green belt. And yeah, I think that's it.
Alice.
I agree with what Sarah just said. I do want to just delving back into history a little bit. The applicant mentioned the racetrack at the Loop on Lexington, and I was involved in that project because I was on the commission at the time. And that one made a lot of sense adjacent to the trail, and they really did a very nice job. Of course, it's a high quality, it doesn't attract crime. It's a high quality business. But they did work with us very closely to make sure there was access to the trail and from what I understand, they do a good job with their stocking too. So they've got, it's not just Gatorade, it's also the kind of stuff like healthy snacks that along the trail might want. So I know that can work, but it makes complete sense at the other location down on Lexington Road. But I think, Sarah just summed it up when she said, Greenfield gas station is the first thing we punched the green belt with along the firefighter trail. As much as I respect what these folks did closer to town, I don't see that working here. So I can't support this application.
Any other discussion? Yeah, Alex.
Just a couple of little things. I tend to agree with some of those that spoke. There is a line and there is another side of the street. There's this side and that side. And I was looking at my map further and it is distinguished. And I will say this is a case of, I usually try to come into these meetings on the fence as much as possible on every application so that I listen to y'all and I listen to the public and try to the public input and put in. And this is an area we're not that familiar with. This is not Baxter Street. It's not Lexington. And so the public input did make a difference. It defined the neighborhood better than it shows on a map. It defined the neighborhood better than zoning shows. And so, yeah, at this point, I don't think I could support it.
Kristen.
I'd like to make a motion to deny. Second.
Motion to deny from Kristen, second from Alice. Any further discussion?
I'll just say that I don't think that I can support it. I mean, we're spending what, $17 million on a firefly trail. I think we can do better and make sure what's developed around it be something more suitable for the intent of what's being put there with the amount of SPOS money that's being spent on it.
I guess I'll just add something and I have a question for staff. The whole side of the street that this property is on is zoned AR and the proposal is to make it CR. The entire other side of the street is zoned EI, right? And someone put a gas station on the other side of the street in the EI zoning without needing to get an approval?
Without a rezone, yes.
That is, so would they need like a special use or anything like that, or just they would do like a site plan?
Just administrative review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I agree with generally with the comments that the other commissioners have made that there's a line there and there's no sense changing the line when if the market really needs gas stations near there, there's ample other sites right across the road where those could be put in. So I guess, is there any further discussion or are we ready for a vote? All right, Stephen.
Kinman, this motion to deny.
Yes.
Beresford.
Yes.
Gehring.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Sam's.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, so that I think everyone knows this, but we are a recommending body and the applicant is free to continue the process with the mayor and commission and ask them to approve it in spite of our recommendation.
Right. But they still look at your recommendation.
Give a good word to your commissioner.
So that brings us to item 4.
Yes, sir. It is a text amendment. And
No, we got more business to do. It takes them with the gavel.
yeah, I will just give you a quick overview of the text amendment that's before you. What's being proposed is a change to section 9-4-3 That's our procedure section of Title IX of the zoning ordinance. And this is something that was initiated at the request of Mayor Gertz. Recently, when the short-term rental text amendments were brought forward to the county commission, as part of the deliberations text amendment, there was a request from Mayor Gertz to bring this text amendment back to the planning commission through the attorney's office to allow for text amendments to be heard with the commissioners to have the same number of options as other type 1 decisions, which are typically development review decisions that come through planning commission. So the options presently are approve or deny. That's it for text amendments. Whereas with other type 1 decisions related to development, there's a handful of options: approve with conditions, deny, remand back. Type 1 decisions also involve amendments to the future land use map as well as zoning map when it relates to development. So that is the nature of this request. That is the purpose of it. That's why it's being brought to you. And the text itself is fairly straightforward. What has been amended, you've got a lot of words, but what's actually amended is on the back page. So you have a 4-page attachment, and it is the next to, well, it's the last full paragraph on page 4 that has the new language in it, which essentially mirrors the other language for green development proposals. And that is it. So happy to answer any questions you might have. Our county attorney is also on the call, I believe. He was instrumental in drafting this and would be available to answer questions.
Just have a question. Just from staff perspective, do you foresee this causing any problems? Like
from a staff perspective?
Yeah, like not so much as staff, but as a person who's been observing this town for as many years. I guess I'm wondering, is there something that we might not be able to consider, or is there something we don't know that this could open? I mean, this basically gives the mayor and commission more ability to sort of mess with our recommendations, for lack of a better word. And I'm just wondering if is there something that I am not, to me, it seems kind of like a no-brainer to allow that to happen. But I'm just wondering if I'm being overly simplistic about it, or if there's something that it could unleash that I don't understand, besides just giving them a little more latitude.
I think thinking that through from sort of the problem-solving mindset, what this wording change would allow for is for a text amendment to get to the finish line of a vote perhaps faster than if there was something contentious and it went into sort of this review and revision and refer, denial, come back to the planning commission, denial, come back to the planning commission. Procedurally, that's what we would have to do now. If something came out of this body with a text amendment to the mayor and commission, they only have 2 levers to pull. So if there's a word off or a concept that can't be added, their only choice is to deny or approve and then ask for more study to be done and then send it back through. So I don't want to say that it's an inefficiency that's created, because that's probably an oversimplification, but it is a procedural loop that has to be followed now. If there's something that they would want to add, even as simple as a word, it would have to get punted back and come back around.
And I guess that, in thinking, as you were saying that, like, what it does open up would be that they could change a lot more than a word. They could change the spirit of the whole thing. So like when you all come to us and you have found a discrepancy or sort of a scrivener's error, it does then, if we make this recommendation of a text amendment, it opens them, that seems kind of sort of like just a little piece of bureaucracy, for lack of a better word, just like fixing something that's, whether it's a problem with the words or a problem with the procedure that it's describing, or it also opens them up to really change that in a way that we didn't intend.
It does provide them more latitude.
Yeah.
Sarah, personally, I don't think I have a problem with that, only because they are elected. And if we send up something and they change the entire meaning or consequence of what's happening, they got to answer to voters. Like we're not elected to that level. So because what went through with the short-term rentals, the grandfather, a lot of people had trouble with that, but they couldn't remove that. They couldn't remove it. They couldn't send it back. They had to vote it and then wait on lawsuits or whatever that may come from it, or send it to review board or pull it out or whatever. So I don't have any problem.
No, I kind of generally feel the same way. I think I'm trying to think if there's a scenario that I'm not in, can't quite anticipate where we would regret.
So I'm not for it because I think it needs to come back because it builds the checks and balances that it was there for to begin with. It was considered that, and if they, like in the case, I mean, I know what brought it up, and so they wanted to hack part of it off and pass it on through. Well, it only takes a month, right? If they said, all right, we deny whatever it is, but here's what we want. Like, here's why we denied it. This one item, this one word. Then I think what you were saying at the beginning of the meeting, or before the meeting actually started, was it can loop back in about a month. This isn't a 6-month period.
Yeah, your point's well taken.
Okay, all right, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. And I was taught a long time ago, the government is supposed to move slowly, and I know it frustrates people, but there is reason that the pendulum kind of moves a little slower. And putting more power into the mayor and commission. And I don't mean our mayor and commission, I just mean that's who is looking at everything we pass through or not. Giving them more leeway makes me wonder why I'm here on a Thursday night. I mean, we're here because we're supposed to be going through this, and what we send is what we sent, whether I voted for it or not. It is what this body sent. So I think it still needs to come back, because I'm going to tell you, some of the mayor and commission, or again, the body it passes to, is going to wish they wish they had to send it back, let us do the dirty work in a sense, and then come up with after their recommendations. So yeah, I'm actually pretty strongly opposed to going along with this.
But they can send it back with this.
Yeah, they can, but they also don't have to. So I think they should have to. Like I think that should have come back if they wanted it, redone, then let us redo it. We're the ones spending, well, you could argue more time on it, because I'm sure they spent a lot of time on that particular issue, but we're supposed to vet it through, just kind of back through y'all again, back through us, and cleaner back to them, which gives it more time to think through it than a evening, in one of their meetings.
Yeah, I guess I hear what Alex is saying, and just to clarify, would you suggest, Alex, like looking at the text amendment, the page, reading the clause, the second line, it says approve the text amendment with conditions or modifications, so that they can approve it, they can deny it, or they can remand it to us with their remarks, with their comments, so that if you think that's a better process, so that we can then engage in our deliberative process but with some clarification from them. They say, here's what we would like. We'd like you guys to work on this.
Yeah.
And then it would come back. It sounds like it's kind of sort of what they do now if they deny, but this would be a more formalized way for them to do that.
Because they actually can't remand with comments.
Right, they can't remand with comments right now. Okay, so I have Alice, and then I think I saw Kristen, and then Sarah.
Yes, so Alice is making a really good point here. Joey as well, and I think that, there's some political issues that were involved in the people wanted to vote. Some people really wanted to vote yes, and some people, I don't know, but I don't need to politically speculate here. The point I do want to make is that the mayor and commission already have this kind of latitude with our land use decisions. And I think staff secretly, y'all don't have to tell, you don't have to reveal yourselves, but I think they secretly refer to the commissioner defined option as the dreaded commissioner defined option. Because a lot of the times that does happen where you're kind of wordsmithing on the fly. I've been in that room, I've been on that side of the rail. So when you've got a big document like an entire planning proposal, you're not going to really mess with that. You approve, deny, or just maybe, well, we don't like this condition that the planning commission put on, and so we'll do that. So that it seems like it's harder to, not that it doesn't happen, it happens all the time actually, but my only hesitation here is that that they could take a text amendment that we have gone through the process that Alex has described, and they could really totally change it. Am I right? I mean, they could just, I mean, they could say, let's say we set up a text amendment for the short-term rental that that said, it was more restrictive. And I mean, they could just totally rewrite it to allow them all over town, or it could be the other way around. So I'm a little bit concerned. It makes sense that they would have the same process here as they have with our other kinds of recommendations, but this one seems a little more vulnerable to that kind of, wordsmithing on the floor, and then staff doesn't get what they want, and planning commission is, kind of thanks, but no thanks.
And what would be the boundaries of what they can and can't change? That's like, that would be really loosey-goosey to me.
Yeah.
Like, would it be only, so I don't know, yeah.
I mean, I don't mind giving up this power myself. But that is my only concern, is just what kind of process it might foster in mayor commission meetings. They have all that CDO possibilities.
Yeah, I just know I've seen enough things come to the mayor and commission, knowing the backstory behind it, knowing the expertise that went into it, and then hearing CDOs get popped out that changes something to the extent where it's like, no, that wasn't how that was. And yeah, so it's really frustrating. That removing the phrase approve the text amendment with conditions or modifications, I would be okay with revising this to with that line removed. But yeah, I completely agree.
So just giving three options: approve, deny, or remand with comments.
Which is basically what it is now.
No, they can't remand with comments now.
Oh,
right?
Right. So we're giving them.
They can deny,
They can deny, yeah.
grapevine what they were concerned about, or we can watch their hearing, but
Yeah.
remanding with them going through the
Actually,
process
instruction
of
stuff.
writing comments is probably valuable. And I think it's fair to say there's a reason we're involved in the process, right? And it's because we have more time to deliberate on the fine tuning of things. And so there's a risk of an on-the-fly amendment kind of mucking up a balance that was struck or having unintended consequences. So Sarah next, and then Joey.
Okay, so first, I want to bring to memory, partly by way of apology, I want to bring to memory the vote for the ADU text amendment, which went down in a blaze of trash fire with dueling CDOs, neither of which could receive the necessary majority, which was why I had the idea. So seeing that happen naturally gave me the idea that they already had the power to do CDOs for text amendments, because that entire vote happened and all these CDOs were thrown around and voted on, and no one ever seemed to notice that this was actually how, that they actually couldn't do that. And I understand why it would have come to light with the short-term rental vote, given the like vocal threats of litigation that were there from the beginning that weren't really there for the ADU amendment. All that to say, I can't speak for everyone, but when I said, let's do a 2-year sunset clause, I was thinking they could change it to 5 years if they wanted. I was assuming that they would get a lot more, face time with the attorney's office and a much deeper briefing. And that they would have more time, and then, that a 2-year sunset clause was a good enough idea. That could be discussed and more thoroughly vetted, and as they do with all the other type 1 things that they see. So just wanted to say that. And also, I think it would be really funny to make a change to this, which is presumably exactly the thing that they want to happen. This is the exact thing that they want, I'm assuming. The funniest outcome would be neither recommending approval or denial of this, but passing on a conditioned and changed version, which they would then have to straight approve or deny.
That's true.
And I can only assume that they would straight deny it if this is exactly the thing that they wanted. It would, it would at least be an interesting conversation, and I don't think that we are on a, I don't think there's a tight time crunch. I don't know how many other, extremely contentious text amendments are on the docket in the next 3 or 4 months. So that was just my thought. Yeah, let's go with Alex's idea.
Joey.
After hearing Alex, I kind of changed my thinking to what he said, and what goes forward won't be that with a line struck through it, because it's going to be the straight text amendment, and that will be removed. Which is kind of funny that you said that they either have to vote it up or down. And really, it's a stalemate. If this is how we feel and they keep voting it down and keep sending it back, then that's all the power they have. So I agree with removing that wording that was previously stated and send it up to approve, deny, or send back with comment.
I think there's a difference between deny, deny kind of kills it. And that the staff might decide to revive it, but they don't have to. And whereas remand with comments is their way of signaling to us, we are still interested in this. And here's how we think it should be changed. The planning commission then still has the ability to decide whether we want to do anything with that or not. But I think, a minor, and I think for me, I would be in favor of just leaving it how it was, but adding that third option of remanding with comments.
In other words, to do what Alex said.
Yeah.
To remove the approve the text amendment with conditions or modifications language.
Everything in gray
Everything
is
in gray
new,
is- yeah.
right?
But the rest of that stuff is about the remanding process, which wasn't in the original.
Got it.
But to remove the sentence about approving with.
Through the text amendment with conditions and modifications.
Yes.
Yeah,
We-
that phrase between the commas, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are good reasons for that. And I think that the ADU is a good example, like, as I think back on that, like, if they had concerns one way or the other about how many bedrooms are in the ADU and they remanded it to us, we would have sent something back up to them. Instead, it was denied, and for reasons I don't understand, was not brought back to the planning commission. So it effectively died. So I think this is a significant improvement. And if they don't like it, they can deny, and we can, have a dialogue about that. But I do think that there's, for all the reasons that people have stated, this seems like a sensible tweak to this proposal.
Can we send this tweaked one back to them with
the ADU proposal. I don't.
We can, let's say this, there are a handful of entities in the ordinance that can initiate items that come to this agenda. And the accessory dwelling unit text amendment can be revisited, so we can
cover that, can't we?
we can talk about that, yep. Yep.
So are you saying, Sarah, that, or anyone really, that Sarah bringing up the dueling CDOs from the ADUs, was that actually not supposed to happen like that?
According to this ordinance.
I mean, that's kind of immaterial from the discussion tonight. I
Yeah.
can tell you a little bit more about that if
We don't.
you want to talk
Yeah.
outside of the.
Bring by you a beer.
Particular.
All right,
Is
so.
there a motion?
I want to throw out that like Sarah, I assumed that they could, based on, I mean, and I was on the commission for 8 years and now almost 10 years on this body. This is the first, if people had to send me an email and say, thank you for what y'all did on the planning commission. I'm glad they can either approve it or deny, or I thought they could only approve or deny. And I was like, no, the commission can make changes. Wrong. Just wrong.
I'll make the motion with the removal of what we've been, I don't have the word.
Approve the text amendment with
Yes.
condition modification.
Correct.
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion, yes, sir.
I would just like to clarify, on the off chance that anyone in the mayor and commission makes it this far in the recording of this meeting, that although I said it would be funny, and I am voting to send it up like this, I'm not doing it because it is funny. I'm doing it because of the very good points that everyone in this body has made.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion of the motion?
So the motion is as it reads here, removing the phrase approve the text amendment with conditions or modifications.
That's not right.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. Should we do a roll call? Yeah.
Motion to approve with condition, Pitman,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Gehring,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sams,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Yeah, well. All agreed. Three unanimous votes.
Each time, I'm always first. Yes.
All right.
I move to adjourn. Oh, there's a
5:12.
The last section of our agenda is other business. The planning commission chairs report. I have nothing to report. The planning directors report. Bruce, do you have something for us?
I'll channel Brad. So the update, and I was just confirming with Stephen, for next month, 5 items plus a text amendment. So we're definitely
I'm
locked
feeling
in.
the headache coming on.
Definitely locked in to do this again in April.
I will be out of town, just to go ahead and put that on.
That's the next thing I was gonna ask. If any of you know,
It's spring break for my daughter and
You don't have to give us, no, you're conscientious. It's just, could you have spring break when there's like a lighter agenda? Could you just?
I won't be able, same reason.
Yeah, me too.
first Thursday of the month.
Right.
It's like the third or something, right? It's like the fourth or the third.
April 4th.
Yeah, we'll be in Pittsburgh, sorry. Y'all are threatening to just ruin our May.
Well, if you know early enough, can we?
Please let us.
Precedent for moving it?
Yeah, confirm as quickly as you can and send us.
I will be here. I will.
You will be
I
here,
will be here,
okay.
yes.
And I see Joey saying absolutely not. Kristen is a hard no. Sarah's a hard no. We were already down 2 tonight where we have an empty position. So it doesn't take much for us to lose quorum these days.
With an empty position, does quorum become 5 or is it still 6? 5 out of 9?
Good question. I think
it's 6.
I think it's 6 because we have 10 positions. Like it's based off of who we're
The
supposed to have.
seat, not the
Exactly.
people.
We'd have to state that within the policies and bylaws. If it
So
were
I think
reduced.
we're gonna.
So if we're down 5.
There would be 6
If four
Assuming
of
that
us are
both Taylor and
gone
Monique could be here.
and
But Monique's also got a,
Katie's gone, then we would not ever.
I would definitely check with Monique, 'cause she has a school-aged child too.
Alex and Sarah,
Anyone who
Garen, you
is
would be here.
in the Clark County.
I don't see why I would not.
I would be here.
No
Okay,
plans.
and I would be here and Alice would be here. So we'd need Taylor and Monique.
And Sarah would be here,
Gotta
right?
have.
If we have both of them,
Yes.
we're good. And otherwise, if you know in advance, would you be able to just kick it back a week in April?
We can do some rescheduling, posting and that type of stuff. Obviously, we have to make some adjustments, but what that does is it starts to snowball on what we have to do to get it to the clerk of commission.
It kicks it to the next cycle.
There's really no other way unless we had, I mean, you're saying that week is not available, so we'd almost have to meet on the Monday following.
The Monday following. Uh-huh. Well, can you guys, once you figure out,
we'll take a look at it.
We would have 6 people here, and if we indeed do need 6 people here, which maybe John can look into that just to verify.
Brad said we need 6.
Yeah, I mean, 6 is.
He said we need 6 even when we only have 9 seats.
Yes.
Okay. So can you guys, I guess, looking into that, and then once
Guess we
you
will.
Taylor and Monique, you can.
Glad you
let
brought that
us
up.
know if you're able to reschedule it in April, or if we're just gonna have a 9-hour meeting in May. Okay, sounds great.
If that happens, can we break it into 2 nights?
So can I ask, are we miscellaneous at the moment, which kind of talks about what we're doing, or John?
I think we might be, but Bruce, were you?
I'll gladly stop with the director's report. That was enough of a bombshell.
Exist. Oh, miscellaneous.
Sorry, I'm taking out of my game. Yes, we have a little bit more with the director's report. Mark?
Future land use input sessions start on March 21st. I sent out that calendar for you all. Hoping like in the fall, you guys can make it. We only have 8 this time around. We're also doing a online survey. We're hoping that's ready on Monday. We've got kind of a final call with our design firm on that. It would have a few survey questions, and then it would have an interactive mapping tool where people can put information onto a map. That map will be basically our growth concept map. Public input goes through the 3rd week of April, I want to say. And I believe we loaded up your spring break week, if I remember, or do we just have the one that week?
The first week in April, I believe there's none.
None? Okay, maybe we made a point. Stayed away from mayor and commission as much as possible. And a few other events we have going on. All that promotional material should be out shortly, but you all should have those dates and times, locations spread around the county as best we can for only having 8 meetings. So if you hear that and someone mentions it, hopefully they can get to it, or hopefully they can do the online survey as well, which will be available on the comp plan page.
So we're really excited about this next wave because it starts to get a little more specific. And what we're trying to do is have that snowball effect of everybody who's touched this process so far is going to be personally invited to come back. And then we want those people to be mouthpieces. So sort of they tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends is part of our strategy. But it's not just the online effort. I think you mentioned the drop-ins.
Yeah, the meetings will just all be drop-in styles, and then drop in here as well.
And then drop-ins here, anytime we'll have a space set up where somebody can come in. If they can't make it to one of these meetings, they can come in and get with a staff person and go through the information one-on-one.
Wow.
So there really should not be too much of a reason why we can't get to the people that want to participate. So it's going to be fun. This is the good stuff.
There's another big piece going with that, and that's our RFP for our infrastructure and econometric analysis. We have tendered an award to Urban 3 this week for that work, and hoping very quickly to get that contract underway and getting data to them as fast as humanly possible. So hopefully that will tie in with the kind of tail end of growth concept and future land use, and expect some fun stuff when they're around.
Great, thank you.
Is the schedule that you emailed us ready for public distribution? That's the schedule, or do you need?
Yeah, but we have nice flyers at the Public Information Office and they want to put out a media release, so we're hoping that's Monday. So we prefer, I mean, feel free to, talk to people, but that
Okay.
professional media release should be out on Monday.
Okay, that, real. That brings us to the miscellaneous section of the agenda. Alex?
So do we have a position open here that is available right now that will get filled sooner? Or I've read the email, I think it came from you, Mark, or maybe it came, I don't know, it came this week, but yeah. Is that gonna just go into the normal annual cycle or can it? Yeah.
In all likelihood, it will go through the normal cycle, unfortunately. That's, yeah.
That's all, the way it's being advertised.
Is that the
Okay.
summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's advertised right now. All the boards and commissions that are open that change over in the summer are advertised right now.
They won't make a selection on the hurry up and have somebody fill out the unexpired, prior to July. It'll be a July 1
So I'll
start.
just go right in with the normal. Okay.
And anybody who's eligible for reappointment, which,
I believe Joey is, Alice is term limited and Joey's our other one.
there we go. Be on the lookout. Don't just assume that it's going to be this automatic. We've had some unfortunate things happen with a couple of other boards because people thought, well, I'm just gonna get an invitation because I'm eligible to re-up. You need to state your intention to re-up.
And I had to be reminded by the planning director when I went back out. He was like, I haven't seen your application. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, same.
He said, yeah, we'd like to have you for another 5 years.
Please, don't lose sight of that because it's a super sad conversation when somebody just wanted to and didn't make it into the hopper.
We lost a really good HPC commissioner, because he was gone for 2 months or whatever and didn't do it.
We lost the chair and the vice chair of the hearings. That was not good.
Is the chair Rich Martin?
Any other miscellaneous business, or do I have a motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
4 hours and 50 minutes. Thank you.
John.
Hour. 5 o'clock today?
You have a lovely office.
3 hours and 40 minutes.
I'll find out.